Welcome back to Always Almost There, a Goose podcast series by Storm Sound and Osiris Media. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Brian, a.k.a. Jive Goose.
And I'm Kev.
I'm D.
And I'm Neal. The five of us are here today to talk about the first half of Goose's September 2024 tour from Holmdel to Waukee.
Waukee, Iowa.
Not to be confused with Milwaukee.
No, not Milwaukee. I did hear that if you go to Waukee 1,000 times, you will end up in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a portal.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that where they invented the walkie-talkie?
We're off to a great start today, folks.
Hey-o!
Feeling good. We're feeling good. Well, it's good to be back. Very, very successful tour. Also, we're going to break the fourth wall a bit. This is the first time we've ever recorded while Goose is playing. They are not playing yet, but they are taking the stage shortly for Mempho Fest.
Kind of disrespectful, I thought, but I didn't set this. I didn't do the scheduling, so.
Yeah, Ryan's a taskmaster.
With any luck, we will pay for our sins by them playing the greatest 90-minute festival set that they've ever played.
There's a damn good chance they're playing the best festival set they've ever played in Memphis, Tennessee today.
Do we all have like 7 and 8 point animals here?
No. 7 and 8 point Mr. Action and Atlas Dogs. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I went 8 point Big Modern because they're in truck country, and so I did. Memphis Big Modern.
Well, this is good. So we're starting off with the fantasy talk, so people can, after this, people can know how we did. Reasonable indication. But we're gonna dive in here. This was a long tour. We, of course, as always, we will be recording this in 2 parts, but you can listen in as many parts as you wish. This part will be covering the East Coast and Midwest, as we said, Holmdel through Iowa, their first show in the state. But without further ado, before we dive in, let's do something a little different here. Let's hear really quick, like without getting too in the weeds yet, everyone's overall thoughts on this tour before we do any discussion. Let's start with you, Neal.
Overall thoughts on this tour. Let's see here. Well, we get a bunch of new music, which is the first time, and it feels like forever that we get a bunch of new music, so that's exciting. We get a bunch of 3-night runs, which I think leading up to this, I was like, well, 3-night runs. I think that's going to translate to more jams. Turns out that's not the case. I don't think we got a lot of the big jams that we thought we were going to get.
At the 3-night runs, yeah.
There's ebbs and flows with how this goes, but I think there was some pretty good set listing as it goes through. I think we saw more segues than we're used to, which is interesting. And I think that's actually a theme that goes across the whole first half of this tour and actually the second half too, where the band seemed to actually really make a concerted effort to have more segues and interesting set listing things going on.
Yeah.
So I think that part is pretty cool. And yeah, man, we had a nice 3-night run in Boston. So that's always exciting for me. I had a short drive to 3 shows. So killer stuff.
You should have seen that parking spot that he got on night 2. You could see his car.
Yeah, we saw it because he shared it with us.
From the venue.
Yeah, Kev, I
got a story about that
overall
when we get to the
thoughts
show,
on the tour.
but...
Well, we'll get there.
Yeah, so I think overall on the tour, we had a lot of questions before, like in between Goosemas, in between when they started coming back, that, what's going to happen? How is Cotter going to assimilate? How is the band going to react to Cotter? How many, new songs are they going to play? What is the, catalog going to look like? And I think like on all of these different accounts, like Goose is just blowing it out of the water. I sort of am coming back to this tour with fresh ears. And every time that I'm going back and re-listening to stuff, I'm astounded by, even after we're in October, beginning of October right now. So, in round about 7 or 8 months, just how tight they're playing. And I know, we have some critiques and we'll hear, probably some of that as we go on. But I think overall, they are just clicking and playing off each other wonderfully. One of the comments I would make overall, you guys know that I'm a big Trevor fan, that when I'm listening to him play, it's not just him, laying down a pocket or keeping time anymore. Like he's expanding the effects that he's playing and actually becoming part of the soundscape rather than, just being in the background, which I'm really digging right now. So overall, I like the direction of how they're playing together and where they're going.
100%. D?
Yeah, tough to add too much differently. I agree. I think initially on my first sort of thoughts looking back was a little surprised by maybe a lack, like we said, of some of the longer jams, which is fine, as we know. That did not translate to poor shows. There's a phrase that might be used a little bit. I'll let it sit just a little longer for the person who touted it. But
Thank you.
I think I probably am in the same boat that I'm glad to see how well they're playing together. I think we sort of saw a little bit in the earlier part of the years, maybe just feeling each other out, which led to longer jams. We see it as maybe something that was a concerted or sort of thought out process, but that might have just been very like free flowing. Now it seems like the band is just trying to get a little tighter, and that's leading to maybe dipping back into some covers. We saw some more covers that sort of had not been seen in a while, and then really getting comfortable with parts of the catalog, be that older songs, but also the newer songs. So yeah, I think it bodes well for the rest of the year and hopefully allows them to open things back up now that they've gotten a little bit tighter with every track that they're playing right now.
Sure. B?
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out to me the most from this tour is probably, Cotter's wardrobe. I feel like it's it's symbolic. I think it's I think there's a correlation between like just his comfort level, musically, and just fitting in with the band and the crew, becoming kind of part of that family and all that good stuff. Everybody welcomed him in, but it's hard, to feel like you're one of the guys. You know what I mean? But it probably takes a little bit of time, I would think. So yeah, so I think the wardrobe, has really been a reflection of his, kind of coming of age with the band, so to speak. So yeah, but look, some good jams too. I mean, I think the jams have not quite reached the peaks of overall, tour over tour of early in the year, but it's been some really good stuff. You know what I mean? And so. And then with new songs, yeah, that's cool. But then also like Zalt, not getting played, and then now it's played as much as anything. So
Yeah,
interesting. Things are continuing to shift and evolve, and so that's cool. It kind of definitely keeps you on your toes, trying to figure out what they're going to play every night.
100%.
Can I,
Yeah.
just real quick,
Yeah.
B, do you prefer kimono Katsuki or vest Katsuki?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. So we had a lot of Afghans around the house growing up that my grandma would knit. You know what I mean? So I like the Afghan vest coat thing look. I think that's
With the Uno card earring?
just all of it together. Yeah, he puts it together. You know what I mean?
And just to add to that real quick, I think there's also a correlation, to add to what B was saying, with Cotter being more comfortable with the band and the amount of chest hair that he shows.
Mm. There is a
Thank you.
strong
Well,
correlation.
Thank you for that.
It's funny.
Can I-
Hold on. Let me just respond to Kev, because it's funny when I first started singing this band, you couldn't get through a song without a bunch of idiots, not idiots, but kind of idiots,
People
yelling for Trevor to take his shirt off, and now we're actually hearing people yell, "Put your shirt on, Cotter," and it's just everything has come full circle. It's beautiful.
Really, it's a beautiful moment. Yeah, for me, the important takeaway from this tour is that I think this is the most consistent tour that Goose has ever played. I think the floor of shows that they played pretty high, but the ceiling in terms of amazing shows and amazing jams is a little bit lower than we've been used to. So
the range isn't quite there.
Correct. What someone might simplify it to just 4 words. Neal, can you help me out here?
Don't say it.
High floor, low ceiling. That's my
dictates.
takeaway from this.
So what you're trying to say is that
Yep.
the shows weren't that great, but they were all pretty darn good. Is that what you're trying to say? Okay.
Yes. But in less words.
It's fewer words.
Sure. Anyway, let's dive in here. I wanted to kind of do that because I think this tour is really important contextually more than going through show by show. But of course, we're going to go through show by show anyway, because that's what we do on this podcast. So without further ado, let's dive into the tour opener, September 1st, PNC Bank Arts Center in Holmdel, New Jersey. Shed Goose. First set, Flow Down, Mr. Action, Draconian Meter Maid, Drive, Seekers, SOS. There are some cool things about this set, and there are a lot of things that I don't really love about this set. Flow Down, Mr.
Debuts?
Action, standard. Yeah, exactly. New song. Is Draconian Meter Maid my favorite of the Cotter songs? No. Do I like it? Yes. It gets stuck in my head constantly. Thankfully, Big Modern kicked it out of my head fairly quickly after I saw Big Modern for the first time. But this was actually, a scary moment when they, did a no jam drive into Seekers. Was a little bit worried. Luckily, they made up for it.
Good thing they played SOS after.
Well, and SOS with a Trevor bass solo. That's a great little twist on this version. Lots of fun. But yeah, otherwise, this Draconian Meter Maid actually really cool jam in here, around 17 minutes long. Great for a debut. Both the debuts in this show getting a workout, so to speak. But I'm looking for them to be a little more adventurous in Meter Maid, if they're going to play it. But yeah, otherwise, those are my thoughts on this first set. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to say real quick that I had the set list posting duties for this show, if memory serves, which is bullshit. Because I get it for the first show of every tour, it seems, when they play all the new shit. And we don't know what it is.
Dicks.
What is this?
What do you want me to do?
So just want to express my frustration with that. So Draconian Meter Maid starts, and not a Swimmer fan. So had no idea what the hell that was.
And while we're on the topic of the set list thread here, we would like to give our profound thanks to Sam King for helping us out when they play new songs.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Sam King.
That's Sam.
Well, sometimes, because sometimes you get it.
Well, sometimes it takes a few minutes, but she always comes through.
So Draconian Meter Maid was just scary confusing because it's unlike anything Goose has ever played before. And if you Googled the lyrics, you're not finding a damn thing.
No.
So
It
that
sounds
one
like
was
something. It sounds like something Humphreys would play.
Yeah.
So Joel from Humphreys was just recently on our podcast, and that was his exact opinion, which is like, oh, that's some Humphreys shit. Wait, wasn't that Meter Maid or was that?
No. It was Big Modern.
Big
but
Modern
I mentioned
rock,
I mentioned to him that he needed to listen to Draconian Meter Maid because it's basically an Humphreys song.
Yeah, it's basically an Humphreys song.
Not because it shares a name with an Humphreys song. But anyway.
Yeah, but so there you go. You get a debut in the first set. I think it's different than anything Goose does. So worth noting, and also a jammer. A little bit of a jammer, but first set jammer. So good stuff.
There we go.
Yeah.
Anyone, anything else to add here? All right, let's move on to set 2 here. 3-song set. The only time they did it this tour, despite ample opportunities to do so again, which is something I want to talk about once we keep going. But we get Big Modern debut, Feel It Now, Madhavan, and a Don't Do It encore. This Big Modern is the 3rd longest jam Goose has ever played. Only shorter than the Royal Oak Rosewood and the Seattle Echo, clocking in at 36 minutes. Crazy. But this song is the shit, and we'll talk about it as we get on. But Big Modern is the shit. This is actually probably my least favorite of the 4 versions that we've seen so far. It's long, doesn't do a whole lot. But it's cool to see them being like, this feels like one of those jams where they walked out and they were like, we're going to play this new song and we're going to play it for half an hour. And that's like something that they didn't do a lot on this tour.
It's like the Animal when they debuted. It's just like, right, like just let it go.
Correct. It's like, we're going to get out here and we're going to explore and push the boundaries for a really long time. So I like that a lot. B, you got something to add on this Big Modern?
I really like this jam, actually. I think it's quite good. I can appreciate the sentiment that, maybe it doesn't do this or does too much of that or whatever your opinion was. But I actually think it's really good. And for a jam of that length, it holds my interest quite well. It just flows really nicely. Like it's just a pleasant long jam. And I think sometimes with these really long jams, you do tend to get those stretches of, it's maybe the reason the jam is so long is because it's taking them extra time to get from idea to idea or whatever it is, right? But
Absolutely.
with this one, I feel like the ideas are kind of fresh throughout. There's nothing groundbreaking, and I think maybe that's why some people, won't take it too seriously. But I think it's really good. I mean, it's definitely probably in my top 5 jams of this tour. I mean, I think it's a really good jam.
Well, I think I listened to it again today also. The whole set is good. I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's just a, I mean, maybe lacking like another song potentially. And I recall on the night when it was a little surprising to see a debut stretch this far. But like B said, I think it holds attention well in the sense of just ideas that are connected versus having spaces where they're not really, and yeah, it's not going to be near the top for me in terms of anything of the whole year, but on a tour that probably lacked some quality in terms of some of the top stuff. A lot of things are very like closely related, I would say. I mean, the Madhuban right below it is another great version too. There's a lot of like very solid versions of songs throughout many of these shows, but nothing that maybe shines through.
Sure. Neal, you had a thing
good.
on this Big Modern?
Oh, I got a bunch of things to say about Big Modern. It's an interesting song insofar as I assume it's Rick, but maybe it's all guys in the band. They love the Chugel, so they get like a little bit of Chugel. They've written their own Chugel, aside from Elizabeth. So that is interesting. And then there's kind of the it's got the CCR vibe, and then the Chugel, and then it's got like a little bit of the subterranean homesick blues with just like random words being hurled at you as you're doing it, but still an underlying theme of just straight middle America, maybe a little bit of Texas in there. You're herding some cattle and shit. All right, so I got to do a thing. Like this is like it's because it just occurred to me the other day, and like tell me if I'm crazy. I'm like walking the dog and I'm listening to this song, and I'm like, this doesn't sound anything like the Home Depot song.
But
it sounds like the Home Depot song.
Yeah.
It's just like when I hear it now, that's all I want to like say is just like more saving, more doing. That's the power of Big Modern. And it fits. It's like it's so right. Everything about it just sounds perfect. But no, I what I thought was interesting about this jam was like they come out the gate and they just like punch you in the mouth with a 37-minute version of a song, and you're like, holy shit, this whole tour is going to be all about the jams.
Right. Yeah. No.
And the Madhuban that came later.
Well, the Madhuban's better, but we'll get to that in a sec. We're still talking about Big Modern here. B?
Well, and we've got to mention, Neal kind of touched on it. Yeah, there's some really good cliche. It's got country vibes, and I feel like there's a lot of irony just in all directions. And you get the heavy metal, shift. I mean, it really is good. But yeah, I didn't think about the Home Depot. My thought was, of course, when I first heard it, Ford F-150 commercial, or Are You Ready for Some Football?
Yeah, it's all American.
It's so all American, and yeah, I think at first I was a little like taken aback by it, because I think you need to let it settle in for a lot of that irony to hit you. At first, because at first I was a little bit like, "Oh, Rick, what are you doing, bro?" But then when you're able to it's like it's at the museum. Sometimes at the museum you've got to take a few steps back, and take it all in
perspective.
And so that's what you do with a song like Big Modern, and then it all makes sense.
It's like a
when you buy a new pickup truck and it's on monster truck wheels, if you stand really close, you're gonna be like, "Whoa!"
These tires are huge.
You throw on Big Modern, you take a few steps back, appreciate the majesty, drive down the highway, come on in for a real good time.
Yeah. Maybe haul your trailer full of horses.
Yeah.
So many possibilities. And we'll get back to Big Modern. There's more to talk about with Big Modern.
This is now a Big Modern podcast.
I mean, it is.
We're changing the name.
It just is.
We're a Big Modern.
Always almost modern. Anyway, we get Feel It Now next, which, reworked again. This is how it should be. It's crushing it. in every placement this tour. I feel like it's been everywhere except for like the encore, which I think would work there. But
It's back this
yeah,
year.
this song's crushing it. But this Madhavan, this is my favorite jam from this show by far. This has OB6, incredible vintage vibe work from Peter, and just this jam. I mean, I think because also I tend to overlook jams from shows more that, like, you know, if I wasn't there or streaming, like if it happened while I was doing something else, then I just listened to it the day after for the first time. I feel like I tend to overlook it a little more. And so this Madhavan, I like immediately ranked pretty high, and then I didn't listen to it for a few weeks. And then I came back to it last week and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, this is an incredible jam. And I kind of initially was like, you know, when I ranked it pretty high, I was like, is this a bit much? Like, you know, it's the first show at tour. Am I going a little overboard? But I've concluded that no, I was not. This jam is phenomenal. Yeah.
Maybe
Who
even
wants to talk
undervalued.
about this? B?
Yep. Second best Matavan of the year, and it
Yeah.
is really good. Yeah, this is for a 3-song set. You know, that it's well crafted and well executed, and yeah, feel it now. You know, I don't want to say anything.
Such a good
Yeah, I don't
connector.
want to say too much. Like, I don't want to spoil, like, you know, debuts we're going to talk about, but yeah, it does seem like Feel It Now has kind of risen in the ranks of, you know, set listing criteria, or, you know, it can it's serving different slots really well, and they're playing it, I think, I would say more. It seems like they're playing it more than you know, the first, you know, period, whatever X period of time after they debuted it. So yeah, this is a solid a 3-song set, as you'll see.
Yeah. Neal?
This Matavan begins an arc of Matavans across this tour that's just really interesting. This one is just like fiery and fast. There's a section of this that is just so absurdly fast. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't even know how they got there, because just the way the song unfolds, always Matavan always comes down to almost nothing and then builds back up into, whatever the gigantic peak that comes at the end. But there's like a pre-peak thing that rivals the speed of the ending peak that, like, is just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
And really love this one. Some like really crunchy riffing from Rick, and then, like you said, Ryan, there's some great OB6 work from Peter that was, yeah, just killer stuff, man. And throughout this tour, Peter, as like he always has done, is just really finds a way to kind of augment what Rick is doing with the synth that just elevates it. So like Rick does that thing that's like kind of a dark riff, and then Peter just brings in the spooky shit right on
Yeah.
top of it that just makes it bone chilling. It's just nuts.
Well, and that's one of the things. This jam is also so interesting. You know, also thinking about 36-minute Big Modern. Wow, this tour is going to be about the jams. You know, and this Madhavan, like, wow, this tour is going to have insane dark jams. And it's funny hearing this in the first show, and it's like you have this heavy ripping zone for so much of this Madhavan, whereas then they flip it on its head, and most of this tour is about bliss jams and, you know, being in a major key, and the darkness becomes few and far between. So that's really fascinating to look at this show in the context of the rest of the tour and how they came out for the month. You know, they took 2 months off. Clearly, you know, they were back in the chateau end of August, getting ready to get back on the road. But it's fascinating to see how they came back out for the show. And then, yeah, Don't Do It Encore. Always fun. Anyone else got anything to add here before we scoot over to Neal's hometown?
Nice. To have
Not
it.
my hometown. In case you haven't heard, I'm from Connecticut, not too far from where Max Creek is from.
Kev, why don't you take us through the first set of Boston Night 1?
I
This
love
one's a
that
good one.
transition. Yeah, thank you, Ryan and D. The MGM Music Halls is September 2nd, 2024 in Boston, Massachusetts. And we end up with first set opening up with All I Need, followed up with a great cover of Caution, One In, One Out. And then closing up of All I Need, no second jam, unfortunately. Turbulence and the Night Rays and Rockdale with a crowd favorite, Lead the Way. Closing the set with Hot Love and The Lazy Poet.
Getting songy.
Very, very songy. This was, you know, pretty much after All I Need and One In, One Out, like the first couple of songs. This is when Neal and I were, you know, a little bit like, oh, you know, shorter jams. This set is great, but I felt as though
It was
at
a
the
flip
time,
on the head from the night before.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt at the time All I Need and One In, One Out both had that same momentum that the jams in Holmdel had, but they were kind of like, this was the beginning of, it felt like we want to play all these songs in this set, and we're going to play all the songs that we have decided that we're going to play in this set. And this felt like a very common trend for this tour, but it's interesting to look at because the jams weren't shorter on this tour because of lack of inspiration and lack of musical ideas. They're there in all of these shorter jams, like micro jams, quote unquote. They are chock full of ideas. Everybody is playing
High
so
floor.
well. There's just we're going to end this and go into the next song because we're looking at the clock and we want to be able to play all these songs. Neal?
Yeah, I think what you start to notice when you look really closely at some of these shows, not all of these shows, is really highly curated set lists where it's clear, and especially because there are 3-night runs here that we're talking about, that they were very thoughtful about how they were going to line up these shows, right? So I agree with what you're saying. We talked about it a bunch on the day after show, which is they wrote these set lists with 1 and 2 shows ahead in mind.
We
And
saw
I
it
think
throughout.
they were doing their best to
It's
honor
probably-
the set list that they wrote, do the arc of, the story they were trying to tell, or whatever you want to kind of say. But, along the lines of what you were saying about where do you find the jams in this? That's like incredibly short All I Need that they opened the show with has a really nice jam in it. Like drop into like the 6 minute and 20-second mark of this jam, and it's awesome until it does the segue into Caution. So it's brief, but there's so I don't want to call it like
glimpses.
an awesome
There's
jam, but like
glimpses in it.
the
Yeah.
ideas are there, and I think it's a recurring theme throughout this tour where the jams are short, but you can find really nice ideas in there. And I think when we did the day after show, I was pointing back to like way back in 2021 where they had a stretch where they were doing a bunch of really short jams that had awesome ideas in it. When we think back to like the Wisteria that they played at Sewanee,
yeah.
and then again in the Caverns, where like those were awesome little tiny jams, and that's kind of what
Totally.
you get here and there throughout this tour. But like a small example of that is the All I Need that opens off the set. Jai, what do you got?
So there are not there's a good 9 or 10 jams from this recent tour that are at least, not everyone is 25 minutes. There's a couple that sneak in about 23, 24, but there's 9 or 10 jams that are, longer than 23 minutes. So, because I found that interesting.
The conversation around
yeah.
that, and that
So what does that mean? Does that mean that they're forgettable, or I mean I don't know, but there are some there are some lengthy jams, and then there's these jams where that are just kind of the medium sized, the 18 to 20 minute guy, which sound amazing and have really cool ideas being explored. And then it's so easy to be like, oh man, like, yeah, it's good, but it wasn't, there wasn't enough of it, or it didn't go long. You know what I mean? So it gets really tricky. Yeah. And that's
Sure.
because, we're going to talk about, some jams later that for me, like, there's a Thatch, from Chicago that I think is one of the best jams of this tour. Do I wish they would have done it for longer? Yeah, but I think you always wish that. I wish San Francisco Wisteria was longer, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, sometimes you have to appreciate the efficiency, and if it leaves
Sure.
you longing for more,
100%.
I think that's a positive more than it is a negative. But in any case, just real quick. So 1 in, 1 out. So when I was talking about Feel It Now a minute ago, man, so this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, man, Peter's presence, I think, is growing with these songs, specifically 1 in, 1 out, which I love. I think this is such a great song. Feel It Now, Redbird. I'm not going to list off all his songs, but it's in terms of the most recent ones. Yeah. I mean, there's some really, really good shit in there, and And so I love that, and I love these songs, and One In, One Out. It's so good, and it's just a matter of time until we get the baller version of that with a killer jam.
It's
because it
like
has
right
such
on
a
the cusp.
great
Yeah.
kind of launch pad, if you want to call it that, just naturally out of the song it's gonna lead into something big. But yeah, the only thing I want to say about this set is that on paper, this is a tremendous set in my opinion. I mean, I love the the flow and the set list construction here. So yeah, we are going to see a little bit of that trend of light on the jamming and a little bit more songy. But as far as those sets go that do that, I mean, you can't. This one's pretty good.
All good shows.
Yeah.
Good shows.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Neal?
Yeah. Trademark TM. No, just response to like what Jive is saying. I think what causes us to do this is we look back at the summer and we look at something like, let's say, Fiddler's Madavon, right? So we talk about like fewer jams or less big jams. That's the kind of thing that we're left wanting. It's not because we hear a shorter All I Need and we're like, like just really wish there was like a longer All I Need. Like it's just like we know what they're capable of because we saw what they did in the summer, and like we're hungering for that when this tour started, right? And that's what we were expecting. But like totally agree on your point that it's okay that these jams are shorter if the quality of the jams is high.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I point to whenever, like people give us flack on Twitter sometimes and online, like, oh, like not every jam needs to be 20 minutes and, quality over quantity. And I'm like, my favorite jam of 2022 is 17 and a half minutes long. It's not about the length. It's the San Francisco Wisteria, the proper jam of the year. The DC Wisteria is 24 minutes, Jive. But my point here is there are some of these 10 to 13 minute jams that are so good and there's so much packed into them, but even a really high quality 12-minute jam can't begin to stack up to a high quality 25-minute jam, because no matter how good this 12-minute jam is, if you have high quality 25 minutes, there's just more good stuff there, and so it doesn't really work. But on One In, One Out, I feel like we haven't spent enough time talking about the song itself here. As you guys have said, amazing new Peter song here, and you get that kind of Rick flavor on it too, which makes me wonder if they kind of co-wrote it together, or Peter had like a framework for the song or some of it written and brought it to Rick and was like, hey, like, you got any ideas for this song? I'm kind of stuck here, or just I would love your input, because you have that How It Ends flavor in the chorus.
Yep.
I saw someone say online that like they cannibalized How It Ends for it. I really hope that's
that
not
would
the
be
case.
sad. I hope that's not the case.
I would be surprised if they cannibalized. I'm guessing that it's a Zalt situation where it's like on the shelf until they're ready to bring it back. Maybe they're tweaking things with it like they did with Zalt. But yeah, I think One In, One Out is very, very strong. We saw it get close to its jam potential in Montana, and I think coming up on this next leg, we're going to get some huge versions. Who's got more thoughts on this set, Kev?
So yeah, I would echo everything you guys said about One In, One Out. I think it's my second favorite Peter song behind Doc Brown. And I definitely feel like what Ryan said to the core. Like when they play this song, it sounds like a Rick and a Peter song. It doesn't sound like just a Peter song. So I think that's excellent analysis, and I echo it as well.
A little bit like Redbird, right? It's a Peter song, but it's not all Peter. I mean, there's others like
it's no Doc
Honeybee
Brown.
is like a Peter song, but not all.
It's good.
It's no Doc Brown.
Doc Brown was like a curveball that none of us saw coming, and it's fucking great.
Kev's been repping Doc Brown forever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I want to clarify that I love Doc Brown. So no disrespect to Kev or Doc or Peter.
Doc.
Thanks.
His nephew in the stands. That one show.
I just said that Doc Brown is my favorite Peter song. What the fuck?
All right.
Yes.
No disrespect.
So anyway, this second set, Hot Tea, Tumble, Western Sun, The Way It Is, Empress of Organos with a White Lights
Great on
Encore.
paper.
Yeah, great. Again, great on paper. Like, love to see Hot Tea in different spots. And this jam has some cool stuff. Again, this is the advent of the full band jamming that we see pop up so much in this tour. You know, Neal, I think you may have been the first one to use the word mature to describe their jamming on this tour. They are listening to each other on a different level than they used to be. So we'll talk about that more later when we get to, you know, better examples of it. But it happens here, you know, fun tumble. But the real treat here is the Western Sun Jam returns. And this was a moment that Neal and I shared that was like very much like the Drive Jam coming back at Peach last year, where like we like lost our shit about it, and like everybody else around us was just like, why are you so excited?
You could hear it though. You can hear it even in the recording. Like I remember listening during the show. Like it's sort of there's
some
energy
people
in
were
it.
excited, but there were, you know, it was kind of a niche thing. But Peter using his Moog Muse, new at this show, amazing synth textures. Want to hear more of this? This is 12 minutes. It's amazing, and I love Peter's way it is teased.
He had just found that or gotten the keyboard too, as we heard, right? He just sort of was like, oh yeah, that day, yep.
Yep. Neal,
this is, I mean, that jam is straight TED tapes. It's the most TED tape sounding thing they've done in a long time, since 2021, in my opinion. I don't think I've heard anything that sounds more TED tapes than that. The only disappointing thing,
SPAC yet.
Yes, there's that too. But this particular jam just, it's short, but it's absolutely excellent. So I recommend you go back and listen to it. It's not going to appear on any like Jam of the Year playlists or anything like that, but it's a pretty neat little nugget of a song. The Hot Tea that starts off this set, Jive, you're going to love this. It's a pretty good Hot Tea. And no, like it's worth pointing out because it's a little bit different. They took an approach to Hot Tea that I don't think they've ever heard them do before. And when we were at the show, we were like, wow, this is going to go somewhere great. And they kind of walked away from it. They didn't really extend this out. But if you're looking for a different take on a Hot Tea, it's right there.
They extended it.
All in all, this was like, I mean, it's longer, but like they didn't take it to very interesting places. I just thought it was neat, some of the things that they were doing in it. It's just not typical of Hot Tea. I don't know. Your mileage may vary, Jive Goose.
There we go. Who else has things to say about this set? Nothing else?
All right. As long as they're all playing well right now, and it was good.
There we go. We were having fun. Nice little dark jam in the Empress. Boston Night 2.
Has been good. Empress has been good.
Mr. Rosewoods.
Yep. Night 2 here, September 3rd, 2024 at the MGM. Returned and getting settled. So we have a Dr. Darkness opener, followed by Wes Montgomery's Switchin'. Shout out Shank Teases. Schofield from Peter and Rick there. Into Atlas Dogs. Into California Magic.
We're cooking.
Into Time to Flee. Just flowing here. And followed by Silver Rising. We get the debut of My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media. Shout out Cotter on vocals. With a set closer of Yeti Rum back to back, my friends.
Wow, what a set.
Yeah, a lot to take in here. It was the flow, I think, is kind of, for me, I think this was sort of indicative we saw the night before, and admittedly, once this first set came out, it was kind of a little bit just surprising, right? Because we had seen a full first set without something substantial in it. The Flea had a little something maybe, but not really. That's pretty standard. So yeah, well performed. Anyone else?
Has My Mind Has Been Consumed by Media? Has that opened a show? Did that open a show at some point? Okay, so yes. All 9 of these are set one openers then. I just was double checking my.
That's pretty much
It is.
It's a first set.
Every single song on this.
Has that ever happened before? Is this a first? Is this like, what's it called in the NFL when like
that's a good question.
The final score of the game has never happened before? Scoregami, is that what that's called? Hold on.
Never heard of it.
All right,
You've never heard of
let's-
scoregami?
if anyone knows,
D.
I haven't.
D,
what is
certainly
this,
you've
sports
heard of it.
podcast?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. You're saying the score, the
No,
total of the
so
scores never happened?
in sports, a scoregami is a final score that has never happened before in the sport or league's history. So, but it's funny because it seems like almost every year in the NFL, there's a game where it's like, oh, scoregami, this final score has never happened before.
You mean it's
Yeah,
like 25
exactly. Yeah, something
to
weird.
12
Yeah.
or something weird? Okay.
I was gonna say my media at this point had not ever opened a show.
Well,
because
that's
this was
not-
the first
yeah.
Well,
time.
still, but it
But-
was it was a 3-minute song that kind of was in the middle of it. So, do you want to go to set 2?
Yeah, well, I just want to say before we move on, media,
Neal.
I like it better without the really long synth intro. I think it's really good being 2.5 minutes. Like it's Whip It, but Cotter wrote it, and it's better,
Yeah, that's
and it's great.
So,
It's super fun.
better than
I
Whip
love
It. I don't know. That's a great track.
I,
but
I want to
that's-
say a couple things about my mind has been consumed by media. One, it is a fun, short song to get your drummer involved in a show. Thankfully, he doesn't play a fucking vacuum, so we've got that going for us. And then two, this one it kind of sounds like a Devo song, which like Devo is fun.
Yeah.
I
Just
don't
Whip
care what anybody says. Like you don't like Whip It, fuck you. You know, Mark Mothersbaugh's
Oh.
great.
I like
Oh,
So, yeah, take that clip and post that shit on Twitter.
we
I
will.
don't
no,
like-
so
fuck you.
it's a really interesting point though, Jive, and it's actually a theme that shows up in this tour, which like a lot of the first sets, or at least the first 4 songs of a first set, are incredibly predictable, because they're all just like we keep like saying it's like a 3-pack of openers or it's a 4-pack of openers, and it's just
This is
This was the 4
keeps
packs.
happening. Yeah.
no, this is a 9-pack of openers, as B said. Watching Neal see a switch in with Schofield teases in it, like I thought he was gonna
This,
like
uh,
jump through the
yeah.
ceiling.
Well,
Yeah.
I was quite excited about that. But the other thing I want to say, but before I pass it to you, Jive, is
Neal likes a 9-pack.
Okay.
That's all I was going to say.
I don't even know what that fucking means.
Nobody
Nine beer?
does.
A
Oh,
9
okay.
years. Hey,
9 beer, alright.
So
Hey.
this Yeti is the first Yeti of a few Yetis, and the Yetis have an arc on this tour, and you're gonna laugh at me, but like the Yeti,
No, they do.
Yeti's kind of a banger
do.
now, and
Yeah.
you can say it's not.
Well,
It's
we
not.
saw it in June too. We saw it in June. It was taking off.
Yeah. It's
I have
kind of a banger.
receipts in the chat.
So when we do the second episode of this, when we look at the second half of this tour, we're going to come back to this point that it's kind of a banger. But there's a different approach now. They got a different jam. They play this a little bit differently. It kind of sounds like Love is a Battlefield for a minute.
Cynthia.
I don't know.
Yep.
It's fun. I like it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to hear from Kev where Yeti ranks on his list of Peter songs.
How many Peter songs are in the catalog?
All right, D, take us into set 2. Let's go to set 2. Kev,
We should do
it.
that as a
Oh,
mail
good
sack.
idea.
Maybe you just do your top 5 Peter songs.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll come back.
Think about it for the next 2 hours, and then when we get to the mail sack.
Yeah.
All right, D.
So
Set 2.
set 2, we opened with Echo, fast version, unfinished. Into interlude 2. Is this the intro? Jive 1. Into loose ends, back into Jive 1, followed by a Redbird, and then Autumn Crossing. Shout out Mads. With a animal encore. That would be Travelers into Elmeg the Wise for those less versed with the catalog. But yeah, more songy. I think that was kind of going through this show. Great flow though. Good blend of songs. Good. So yeah, what do you got, Ryan?
My only point is there's a certain point where great flow turns into ripcords, and this set was the first time on this tour where I used the word ripcord to describe what Goose was doing. I felt that both Echo and Redbird were both
Yep.
in really promising territory before they pulled them in. Don't get me wrong, I'm really excited about Interlude 2 getting played as many times as it did. Only sad that Interlude 3 hasn't made an appearance yet. Neal, Interlude 2 is better. No, it's
The
not.
greatest lewd is Interlude 2.
And
the
I
best
love
of
I love
lewds.
I love the cheeky loose ends in the Jive 1. Like, Rick started his solo, immediately just did loose ends for like a minute, and then they went back into Jive 1. I love that. But like, do that in a first set or do that in a second set when it makes sense. Like, that echo was really starting to cook when Rick pulled them into the interlude. So my only thing with this set is, I mean, I wanted Echo or Redbird to go bigger
Further.
because both of those were developing some really interesting musical ideas. And I felt that this was the first example of the Travelers El Meg Autumn Crossing that didn't really pack the emotional punch of the two that they played in June. And that's all I got to say here. The Animal encore at that point, like after the El Meg, I think, Neal, we were all like, oh, they're encoring with Animal 100% tonight. Like, this is an Animal encore show. And they did. And Neal said he was going to leave. But guys, I got a secret for you. Neal didn't leave the venue and start driving home during Animal, which is crazy.
I did. The moment it ended, I walked out the door to my car, which is literally right
goodbye.
outside the venue.
Yeah. Hey, Neal. Yeah. I think, honestly, I think your parking spot is more interesting than this set.
Oh, do you want to hear about my parking spot?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So all 3 nights, I somehow managed to park directly in front of the venue, which is amazing because I live about 11 minutes away at night
without traffic
from the venue, which is pretty crazy. This is Fenway Park. You don't just find a spot in front of the venue. So I got a bunch of great spots. I have a video of me talking about my spot, but the best part of the whole thing, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, is I had an amazing purely Boston conversation with a Boston firefighter when I pulled up this first night, or it was maybe the second night. I can't remember now, but I pull up and I pull into a really tight spot, and this guy, and I'm looking at the signs to make sure that my car is not going to get towed, and the guy walks over and he's like, "That was a fucking great job." He's like, 3 other people came over and tried to park in that spot, and they couldn't get in there. He's like, "How'd you do it?" And I was like, "I don't fucking know. I just parked in the spot." It's like, "Well, good job. They're not going to tow you. You're good." And so, I just bounced out of the venue right to my car and drove home. It was nuts. I've never been home so fast from a show, even when I've been staying at a hotel across the street from the venue. So
this was the theme of this tour: is sleeping in your own bed.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah. That was the best part. Yeah.
Well, we are going to move to Boston Night 3 now, where B is. Jive Goose is taking a little bit of a breather from the podcast. This first.
He didn't want to hear the story about my parking spot, man.
No, this first 45 minutes has been tough on him. He's old.
Nah.
I saw a light turn. Oh,
nah,
there he
kid.
is. All right, B. Why don't you?
Nah, kid. I love the story, kid.
First set of Boston Night 3.
Hey, we've been there. We all been there.
Yeah.
How'd you park there?
You guys know Jive lived in North Quincy?
The guy just came to cheer me on. I think that's the best part of the story. It's he just he couldn't hold it back. He had to come by and be I'm proud of you.
Seen others fail.
So we've moved on. B, why don't you take us through the first set of September 4th, Boston Night 3?
The Whales, Mas Que Nada, Doc Brown, one of Kev's faves, Indian River, Wisteria Lane, Echo of a Rose, Slow Ready. So just quick stats. 4 or 5 of these have opened a show only out of the 7. So not too bad.
That's it.
So yeah, pretty good list of songs again. Just getting another songy set in Boston, and
in the Echo.
Yeah,
had to do it. He loved to do it.
I think look, the long jam here is Indian River, and then a rather short Wisteria, probably maybe the shortest that we've seen this year. I don't know. I don't have the stats, but it's got to be down there. So it's when you're rushing through Wisteria to get through the set, then you got a lot of songs that you want to play. So that's what they're doing.
It's the shortest this year by 7 seconds. Kettle House is 7 seconds longer than this one, but definitely better. Yeah, I don't have a ton to say on this set. The last few minutes of Indian River, like Indian River has been doing this set, You get a good delta in, and then the last few minutes they come down into this quieter space, reminding me a lot of the Chateau Hunger Site, the second half of that jam, that like just kind of like, you know, floaty, groovy kind of space where they're just like being all slow and a little bit melodic. I like that space a lot, but not enough of it here, you know, to really rank or do much for me. I like, you know, if they really want to finish Echo, I like splitting it up over a multi-night run. I think that's cool. But this one kneecapped the Wisteria a bit. Neal?
Yeah, just two things really quick. The last few minutes of this Indian River, I also thought were cool. You know what it reminded me of is
What?
like it sounded like a track ripped out of like the end sound from Way Out by the Beastie Boys. I don't know, and I thought that was neat. So that was like pretty neat. And then this Wisteria, although short, had a nice kind of China Rider transition jam to it that reminded me of the Wisteria from Madison. I want to say last year. Is it Madison Wisteria that has that? I think it is. So you know that was a kind of a neat point. Not even close to as good. Not even close. But you know, just 2 points there.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you Jive Goose hitting his 8-pointer. Fucker.
Yeah.
Goose just started at Mempho Fest. We're you know what? We're gonna do this. We're gonna
they
interrupt
opened
this
with Big
podcast, throughout Goose's 90 minute festival podcast.
easiest eight
They opened
easiest
with
8
Big
points.
Modern.
I mean,
I hate
you guys didn't have that as your 8?
We have never done that. We have never done this before. We have never had live Fantasy Goose
I had a
commentary.
5 Big Modern.
So this should add. I didn't have Big Modern at all because
I didn't have it at
was
all.
way
Yeah.
up
But like
tour.
Memphis, Tennessee, I mean, this shit
Idiot.
just adds up. I mean,
Yeah.
God damn it, you're so right.
Right about now, Goose is Rick is singing "Jump Shot."
Okay, let's not do that.
Rooftop beat set 2.
In the pond
Set 2. So set 1, night 1,
Let's hear
and
it.
set 2, night 3. Excellent sets in terms of construction, you know, on paper. So set 2 here, night 3, Thatch, Creatures, Doobie Song, Fish in the Sea, 726, Dripfield, Encore, Shama. So aside from the encore, this is a hot set 2, and I think the Thatch is the only Boston jam on my playlist. It's not incredibly high, but it's a good jam. This is a nice Thatch. Creatures continues, I think, to enjoy its resurgence. This isn't it's not a standout version, but I like these, these Cotter versions or these 2024 versions. Doobie Song, yep, I'll take it. Interesting placement there. I mean, yeah, I think we've been getting Doobies as encores more than anything else. So this is a little bit of an interesting spot for it, but I'm a fan. Fish in the Sea, great cover. It generally pops out in nice sets. I think you see Fish in the Sea with 726 a lot. I think they tend to wrap up tours and things with those 2 songs. So you see them together a lot. And then a nice Dripfield, which you see paired up with the 726 a lot. So nice set here. And I was just going to say, look, I'm not a fan. I usually just leave it at that. But this was and did end up being a meaningful version for some folks out there that are, I would say friends of the pod and kind of good, upstanding community folks. So Paige got the Shama, and that was a cool moment for them. So yeah, that's the thing. You got to find joy in other people's joy sometimes.
We don't always thieve it.
What I found interesting was they kind of did a fake out. Like they played the Creatures with Paige and John in the front row, and then
Which they would go to. Yep.
Yeah. So defeated.
Did they tease it in the Creatures?
Shama encore.
They should have.
They did not, but they played Creatures, which is where you would expect it to be.
That would have been great, unless teasing it and not playing it would have made them leave, and then they would have missed the encore. So it could have backfired. So maybe it's better they didn't tease it.
Couldn't have happened to better people. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And this was the one show of the 3 that John made it to. Paige was at all 3, but they were so happy. It was also great. We had John on the day after show because Paige couldn't make it, and so John told it from Paige's perspective a little bit, which is pretty funny. You guys should check it out.
Wait, before
This
we move on,
thatch. I want to talk
Yeah,
about the
move on.
thatch.
wait, before we
for a
talk
second.
about the music, I want to stay on
Oh,
this
okay.
point. If you don't know who Paige and John are, and you're listening to this podcast, Paige and John Caruso, as a family, produce the El Goose Times, which is an amazing print-only version. Well, I guess there's an online version of this, but a print fan newsletter, a fanzine.
Yeah,
A
fanzine.
zine, I would
A
say.
fanzine. Yeah, like old school, like, the 90s fanzine, which is such an amazing thing. And we're so lucky to have this in our community. So their hard work, we all benefit from that. So awesome of the band to acknowledge
Find
that
it
by
at a
playing
merch
this song.
table
I just wanted to say
and-
that piece.
Yeah, and we're coming back for leg 2 of this fall tour. Find it at the merch table starting in Nashville.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's sick.
So about
Interview.
that thatch, Ryan.
Very cool interviews. Yeah.
It was good.
This thatch is great. The star of the thatch to me, Peter and his riffs on the vintage vibe. He's doing it in the minor and then they modulate up to major and he's doing a variation on the same riff. Absolutely love what he's getting into here. I think it's amazing. Thatch is, it's Thatch. It crushes every single time.
Settled kind of a little bit.
Yeah. And classic 726 drip closing this set. This was we're still like, we need a drip that's gonna jam. Luckily we get that in about a week. So thanks, Goose. Anyone else have thoughts to add on this second set before we continue onward? Neal, SPAC, night 1.
SPAC night 1.
Guys,
Yeah,
just so
man.
you know, you are hearing the set list read by the king of SPAC. On September 6, 2024, this man conquered the mountain and was the king of this venue.
Oh man, I had so much fun this night. But let's do the set list. It's not about my impressions of the show when I was there. It's about analysis of the show overall.
No fun.
Bust out show. This show's a bust out show. So really, really exciting stuff. I don't really use that word a lot when I talk about Goose
what, exciting?
Sets. No, just bust outs. Like I don't find it to be a thing to apply to Goose shows because there's just not that many big gaps, but we get some pretty big gaps here. So we get Elizabeth opener, we get Atlas, then Turn Clouds, Born into Rosalie McFall, which is bust out right there. I think it's like 70-ish shows or something like that.
76.
And 75 shows. How about that?
Oh,
and then we get a Bob Don with no Bob Don with. But those are coming later, and then we get a Pancakes to close off the set. And I think my impression when I was there was like, thank God we finally got some jams in the set. The Elizabeth had a little bit of fire to it. That was pretty exciting. The Born, eclipsed by later Borns, was exciting. Rosalie McFall was just like out of nowhere. And actually, the segue into Rosalie McFall out of Born is incredibly weird and awkward. Like it doesn't exactly fit. But that was super exciting. This is a bust out show. So they had to slide that in somewhere, and that's where you get it. And then you get a little bit of a jam in the Pancakes that closes off the set. Nothing that's going off of the charts. I think that comes later.
But it's a jam.
Back. But, this was exciting to see after we just went through like 3 shows in Boston where we're like, just give us the jams, and then so we get a little bit of that in the set.
Yeah. I think for me that this was, again, I think you and I agreed. I think you said it first, but we agreed after Elizabeth, even at the show, we were like, this is not the same band that we saw in Boston. Like they were coming out on stage. Yeah. There was an inspiration that they had. There was confidence on stage as they were getting into the improv. I didn't feel as worried about, like, oh, maybe they're going to ripcord this jam. I was like, here we go. Goose is playing. And I thought this was a turning point for the rest of the tour. Little did I know. But my only really thing for this set is, Pancakes felt like catharsis in a similar way to, we'll talk about in the second half, the Earthling or Alien from Carnation at Remlinger Farms felt like catharsis. After 2 or 3 shows with not a lot of jamming, some rip chords, like felt like they weren't really breaking out of their shell, so to speak. Like there were ideas, but they weren't really taking them the distance and fully realizing them. This was the jam where it was like, we're going to be doing that here. And tonight we're going to be jamming. So felt really good in this set. And Rosalie, stats. Any other thoughts? Or should we let Neal talk about his crowning achievement as a Goose fan?
No, I don't have anything. I thought it was another fun show or a fun set. A little bit more though. It was like a taste. We were getting. It was all for what we saw in the second set too.
Right on. All right, so set 2, we get, let's see here, we get an arrow, gigantic arrow opener. So if you're starving for the jams, this one is like mana from the heavens, right? So we get that. Then you get Everything Must Go, another 20-minute jam right after. So, and this one's hot. I think everybody left this show talking about the arrow, but the Everything Must Go that comes after, like very, very hot jam. Then you get a Jeff Angborg out of nowhere. First time in almost a year. That was exciting.
52
exciting
shows.
Stuff. And then you get the first Christmas card from a hooker in Minneapolis since Swansea 2020, which was my third show ever. I was at that show.
That's
bajillion years.
That's 254 shows there, Neal. That's a big
3 shows.
Big bust out.
Big, huge. But I mean, that's like a real bust out, right? That's a long time. It's a cover, and I find the term bust out to be strange with covers, but I think we use that in this situation.
Yeah.
And then, the Angborg is kind of a bust out too. It had almost been a full year. So that's exciting stuff. And then you get an Arcadia to close off the set, an abbreviated Arcadia. And an encore of Hot Love and the Lazy Poet.
Another
weird-ish slot for that, but crushed in that slot. So yeah, I think you get like 2 really, really good jams in this set. You get an arrow that has an incredible amount of darkness. Again, Peter augmenting Rick's like really dark, crunchy tones with the OB6. Took us to a lot of cool places. Not an all-timer arrow, but like very, very, very good stuff. And then the Everything Must Go that comes after is just hot and actually has the vibe of like a Hunger Site jam. When it finished, I was like, that almost felt like I was just listening to Hunger Site. It's just like what led up to the jam was Everything Must Go and not Hunger Site. So I don't know, pretty cool stuff. Ryan, what do you got?
I want to talk about this arrow because this was funny to me because also like, if you're going to go to the bathroom during arrow, like you go during the song or like before the 13-minute mark. And I just found it funny that Neal decided to go to the bathroom around 13 minutes in. Like he was like, I'm going to go pee. And I was like, they're starting to do things with this jam. Like now you're going to go. And so I was
sometimes,
by myself.
You got to feel the vibe of the people. And I needed to in that moment. That's all I have to say.
Neal is a man of the people. But so this arrow I really like because so Peter for most of this jam hangs back on like low tones on OB6, as you said, Neal. But that opens up the space for Rick, for Cotter, and for Trevor. Because normally Peter takes up so much sonic space, whether he's on vintage vibe or piano, playing various synths, organ, whatever. This jam is just like he's just on the low end of the OB6. And I don't know if this was something they had discussed before, like, hey, let us do this one, see what happens. Or Peter was like, I want to see what happens if I just give them all the room in the world. But part of the reason why I love this jam so much is because it's just like Rick and Cotter. Like Trevor is crushing it too, but this is Cotter, foot to the floor. The momentum that he's driving through this jam is amazing. And Rick, like, just fucking destroying things, like getting into this dark, shreddy territory without the aid of really aggressive synths from Peter, like, something like the Fox arrow or even the Troutdale arrow that we'll hear. It's just Rick going ham. And it's really, really spectacular, in my opinion. And then the way that they rise up from the darkness back into arrow towards the end is really amazing. So I love this jam a lot. I'm sold on Arrow after this tour. It's been doing really, really well. So shout out Arrow. This Everything Must Go, really great. Not the deepest of improv, but just really fun jam. Angborg, yeah. Big clav energy. And I mean, Christmas Card was a complete left turn out of nowhere. Like, did not expect that at all. Really excited to get that one for the first time.
Yeah, this is a killer set.
B?
Really good. Another just well constructed, well executed set. So yeah, good job by you guys for being at these. The arrow is really good. And I think kind of the theme that we're going to see, at least from my perspective and my playlist, is, I would say this is the second best Arrow of the year. And so, kind of to your point earlier, it's, there's some really good jams on this tour, but by and large, it's funny when I look at my playlist, my top 10 is still dominated by, June and first half of the year, right? In fact, probably up through the 7 or 8 spot is all first half of the year. But then in the teens, you get to the teens, and then it's dominated by fall. So it's funny. Some of that is I think at times it's hard to slot things in right away. What happens for me, I get a little bit of a bias because I love these, these early year jams, and then you've sat with them for longer, and you've proclaimed them as top 3 for so much longer that I think it becomes difficult to displace them or slot something in ahead of them. So it takes a little bit of time, but for now at least that's where it sits for me. It's like top 10 still dominated by first half of the year, but then there's a lot of fall jams that fall into that tier just below.
Fantasy Goose update.
Hot
They're
Love.
playing Hot Love and the Lazy Poet.
Wow.
Hot Love.
So speaking of this Hot Love encore, anyone got things to say here?
No, it was good. It was good to see them opening it up after Boston, like everyone had said, and kind of got the teas with the pancakes. But yeah, Arrow was a good mix. I think we saw a lot more of the complementary Peter synth, and he's just getting more comfortable with the OB6, and then with the Moog, like the newer, having a newer piece of equipment, that'll be something that takes time, but he'll get more and more comfortable with. So I think and I love those sort of soundscapes where it's just like washing over and kind of creates a lot of space and sort of depth for the music. It just makes it sound a lot fuller for me, and even at times allows him to, like, he can loop a synth, pick up his guitar again. We saw that at times, and yeah, fun. Angboard bust out, Christmas card, Arcadia, you can't go wrong. Hot Love is a fitting encore too, so yeah.
Shall we hit up night 2?
Yes.
Do it.
SPAC night 2, arguably the show of the tour. Let's do it. First set, Indie Groove. Yeah, but am I wrong, Neal?
I don't know.
Because you also have attendance bias.
Never.
Indie Groove Atlas Dogs for the first time since 10/11/22, 130 shows. Into Lead Up, Earthling or Alien, Blood Buzz, Ohio for the first time since September 28, 2023, 56 shows. Into Big Modern, The Old Man's Boat, Hot Tea. Now, this is a good first set. Indie Groove Atlas Dogs has never been a favorite of the members of this podcast. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, I guess, because this was great.
Sounded good, yeah.
I think our initial apprehension on this arrangement was like, it's like in June 2022, it was like, oh, like this is a thing, this new song that's really cool.
We're going to change it already.
Rearranging it into a less good version. Like, why are you doing that? But now that we've, heard Atlas Dogs 80 billion times, yeah, I'm down with the Indie Groove version every once in a while. Otherwise, this set is just lots of fun. Getting my first Big Modern, I was like, I'd listened to the Holmdel version, once or twice, but like 36 minutes is a lot. But so seeing this at SPAC, I was like, oh yeah, this song is the shit. Mustang, Bangarang, Turtle in the fast lane. Am I right?
Turtles?
Yeah. And then Hot Tea, my only thing here is like, I was getting a little worried about, timing on the second set with how long this Hot Tea was going. But luckily, we were fine. Anything to add? Anybody have anything to add on this first set?
Real quick.
Yeah.
Because this show's about the second set and the second set alone. Exciting that you get that Indie Groove Atlas Dogs. I agree with you. I think our apprehension around the Indie Groove version of Atlas Dogs early on when they introduced it was centered around the idea of like, we were certain we weren't going to get a jam, and we were longing for the jams that we got when the song was first introduced.
That's true. Once they brought that in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's where that comes from. So now that there's a little bit of distance there, it sounded great. I really liked it in that spot. I wouldn't be mad about it showing up here and there.
Pairs
So
well
that
with
was pretty
lead up
cool.
too.
Yeah, yeah. And then this Earthling Aurelian was pretty good. You know, you got a bunch of sauce
Yeah.
in this. You know, like, and you get a little bit of sauce to like kind of counterpoint what Peter's doing on the keys. It's all good stuff.
We all like
And
sauce on this podcast.
yeah, I do. We all like the sauce. Blood Bows
Yeah.
Ohio, though. Come on. You
Yeah.
know, some of us
Paired with
thought
Big
in the
Modern too,
moment
this song.
that
Yeah.
this was It
It
Burns,
burns
Within.
within. Yeah, some of us did.
Some of us. The podcast account might have tweeted that in the moment. I don't know.
Might
Oh
have.
yeah, that's right.
But no, in fact, we got Blood Bows Ohio, which I think we were all really excited about. So that was pretty dope. And then, of course, the Big Modern in there. And then I'm just going to say this. If you don't play Old Man's Boat all that often, or you just play it every once in a while, sometimes it just fits perfectly in a set. I think it actually fit pretty well in this set.
And they jammed it. Thank God. Even though it was only for like a minute and a half, at least they jammed it.
Well, that was like the running joke, which like I feel bad because sometimes like I tweet things and there's like no context, and like I
Something
tweeted out
about
like
me
during the
fucking
show,
up
like,
the
will
vibe?
Ryan fuck up the vibe? Question mark. And then people were like, kind of like, why would Ryan fuck up the vibe? It's because the last 2 times you had seen this, they had not jammed it the last 2 times Ryan was in attendance. So we thought for sure we were going to be screwed. And we talked about this in the last podcast. Like Old Man's Boat without the Old Man's Boat jam is just, it's mean. So that's it. That's all I have to say about this set.
All right. Well, let's talk about this second set because this second set is going to warrant some discussion. I think this is the first set of the tour where it's really like, this is an all-timer kind of set. Hunger Sight, Give It Time, Drive, Center Man with a So Ready into Zalt Encore. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about Goose. Like that, this is what we know that they are capable of, and this is what we want from them, right? Like they come out for Hunger Sight, you know, instead of getting what we saw in June, which was like 18 minutes of just like high energy hunger sight shredding, and then a few minutes of like kind of like darker angular jamming. We get this initial really awesome bliss motif, which we'll see pop up in some hunger sights later in the tour in kind of a different way, of course. But it's really not just we're going to modulate to major key and have a good time and do a bliss peak. There's layers, there's maturity, as you've said, Neal. There's a lot going on in this jam. Really uplifting motif, and then we're going to bring it back down, and we're going to spend the next 10 minutes just building up. And it just like, it's patience. It's amazing. Peter with like that steady bounce in his seat, like while they're going, it was perfect. Like guy was like the click track. I wonder, is the click track built off of Peter bouncing in his seat? Who knows? But this was amazing. Phaser piano, really the star here. And then bring it down, give it time. Perfect mid-second set cool down. Neal went for a stroll, you know, giving himself some time, giving some high fives out to the people, you know.
Hugs.
Neal's a celebrity, it shows.
It's the weirdest thing. So wait, like, so since you bring it up, so like I walked out and the only people I ran into in the aisles, and maybe it's just like, you know, how I felt in the moment, were like people that I knew. So like I'm like walking through and like everybody's in their seats, like watching the music. And then I just like run into Bruce Robinson of all people. And like, he's just like standing in front of me and like, why are the two of us standing out here in the aisle and there's nobody else?
There you were. And you gave a hug.
Yeah. Sorry.
But this drive, I
sorry.
want to leave this drive mostly to Neal, because like he articulated this really well in the moment about a specific thing. This is pure TED tapes. This is like Hunger Salt, but better. And then right into Sinnerman, which, as Peter said at the show, he's never seen a bigger dance party than on the Peter side at SPAC. This was fucking awesome. And then So Ready Zalt in the encore. You know, a good friend of the pod, Dylan, had let us know when he was in line earlier that they had soundchecked Zalt. And Neal and I in the first set, we were like, oh, they'll probably play Zalt, like it'll close the set, whatever. And then in the blur of this second set and how good it was, I think both of us had completely forgotten about the Zalt soundcheck. And so then when they came out with it out of So Ready, instead of going into the quote unquote satellite, we were like, oh, you know, here it is. Like, yeah. So it's very exciting.
It's a great song to segue into. Also.
Yeah, 100%. But this is like my favorite set of the tour, I think. You call it attendance bias, but I saw 15 or 16 of the shows on this tour. So
yeah, I just want to. I'm going to put my fluff checker hat on just for a moment. This is a phenomenal set. I I agree. I agree with that completely. But the star of the show for me is this drive. The hunger side has kind of fallen down.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
been one of the
Yeah.
jams that as I listen to more and more of these fall jams to try to figure out where they're going to end up. Um, this was initially, way up there, and it's kind of fallen down some notches. So, but yeah, but the drive, and Ryan alluded to Neal having some thoughts here, so I'll leave it to him as well. But I will say that, I mean, I without looking at my playlist, I'm pretty sure this drive is my top either one or two jams of the fall so far. It's truly that good.
100%. And before Neal takes it away, Fantasy Goose update. Goose is playing lead up right now.
I said that.
Yes. Yeah. I picked that one.
I missed that.
I didn't pick the other two, but I got that one.
Well,
So-
I'm still at an egg. Neal,
I'm glad we took time on the
what the
podcast to talk
fuck is
about
Atlas
the
Dogs?
fact that you've picked no songs and nobody cares.
We love that.
So like I agree with you, Jive. I think this hunger site on its own, not that exciting, but I think in the flow of this set,
No, it's the whole
it
set.
actually really, really fits, and the flow of everything is just right. And all the things that Ryan said about this hunger site really help it build up into the Gibbet time, which really helps it build up into this drive. And then this drive just has so much depth to it. There's a lot going on. This is another example of that the mature, like really tasteful jamming that they're doing, which is like I don't want to overuse the word patient, but there is patience there where like people are allowing things to happen and really unfold. So what comes in the back half of this drive jam is like lots of like really extended phrases that are kind of swells with like the drums and the bass and the piano. And then like there's a whole section of Rick just kind of plucking chords with his fingers in this, while the band kind of has this, the rhythm section has this undulating thing going on. And it reminds me of what comes later in the drip field from Salt Shed. And like it's just gorgeous. And so Jive, I agree, this is my favorite jam that they did the whole entire fall, and I think there are a handful of really excellent jams, but this one sets itself apart in a lot of different ways. And I think it has a lot to do with just how well executed the full band jamming was. This is not an example of Peter ripping his solo, or like Trevor being Trevor bass, or it's not that. It's just how it all sounds together, and it just laces up like an old shoe. It just fits just perfect, and that's what I love about this drive jam.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my number
really
5
good.
jam of the year.
I didn't talk about the Cinnamon. It's so good. This is such a good cover. Cinnamon. This
Cinnamon?
is such a good cover. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that they've now played it twice in less than a month. So maybe that's a sign that it gets more plays. It got a couple plays last year. I think it got 4 or 5 plays in 22 when they debuted it. So I think just the 2 this year that have happened in the last month. So yeah, love to see that. Hopefully that's a sign of some regularity, because it's just, I mean, it's so good. That's all I can say. It's just so good, and it jams. I mean, it's such a powerful song, and it's such a beautiful song, and then it just jams. I mean, it's incredible.
Hey, speaking of jams,
Sorry, Corey.
Wong is currently playing Animal with Goose. As far as songs for Corey Wong to sit in go, I'm curious why they picked Animal.
Hey,
I mean, I get it's a funk groove which fits his style, but Animal?
It's a festy set, man.
Yeah, that's fair. Kev did
It's got
allude
you
to the
there.
fact that we all should have had an 8-point Animal, and as per usual, Kev is right.
7, but
Any more thoughts on SPAC Night 2 before we head down south?
are we ready to tang?
All right,
Tango.
let's go down to Charlottesville, Kev.
Awful bathroom situation.
So we'll get
that
to
was
the awkward bathroom situation in a moment, but Ting Pavilion, Charlottesville, Virginia, September. I have these bifocals now so I can read the date. It's September 9th.
Woo!
2024. Let's open up this first set with the Billy Joel cover of Turbulence and the Night Rays. All I Need into I'm Writing a Novel, Feel It Now. We were just talking about this Animal, Rosewood Heart. We closed the set with a Rockdale.
Well, I mean, I'll jump in here. I mean, nothing crazy in this set. I mean, most notable is that this is the third Rosewood of the year after a long gap, 20 shows without being played. Why are you going 20 shows without playing Rosewood? That's ridiculous.
Unacceptable.
Please don't do that again, Goose. I really hope
Too
they don't do
many
that again.
Rosewood.
But yeah, that's my only real thought on this set here. Otherwise, I heard the bathroom lines were a nightmare. Yeah. Anyone else?
I got nothing on this set. I mean, this
All right.
this happens a couple times in this tour where they just kind of drop a show on their way to the next set of shows, and there's nothing really to write home about. And yeah, this first set doesn't really have anything to write home about. The second set actually does, but I mean, not much to say here. It is standard Goose fare here. It's all good stuff. I mean, you get a Rosewood Heart. This one's like a little bit fiery, and like you said, first one in a really long time, so you get that little bit of a treat. But otherwise, I mean, you're seeing some pretty standard stuff in there. Turbulence opener, Rockdale, first set closer. I mean, this is pretty normal stuff. And you get you get a novel in there. That's neat. But otherwise, pretty standard.
I would just say, yeah, if you're going to make lemons, Rosewood Rockdale. I mean, even if they're not jammers, that's a great 1-2 punch to close the set, in my opinion. I'd be super, super excited if I were at the show and you told me we were going to get Rosewood Rockdale to close the set. That's good stuff. Rock heart.
Should we move on to the second set?
Let's move on to the second set.
So second set opens up with Tumble into a power ballad, this old C, into Neal's favorite lude, the interlude 2.
Yes, the best of the ludes.
Into Empress, and of course what has become way too routine Unfinished Miss.
Yeah, some people have stopped noting when Mist is unfinished because it's just accepted now.
Nobody has stopped. Nobody has stopped. Nobody has stopped. Someone did make an error at one show, which I will take responsibility for, and it was pointed out, and I rectified the error. But we will always note when Mist is unfinished because it should not be the case. Well, I guess if no one else is going to talk, This Old C, new outro.
This is the new outros with the ooze.
Love it. I was worried initially, like, oh, they're going to make it into a, they're going to do this outro and it's going to kind of replace the ability for this song to jam. But no, this version was 19 minutes. I love this new outro. It's amazing. Other than this, like, I mean, I would love if they stopped putting songs in the middle of Empress. This segue into Mist and back into Empress was good, but like,
this Tumble is
big Empress.
To quote, a friend and mentor, this is a really good Tumble. And in fact, incidentally, it's the second best Tumble of the year.
Who are you quoting?
So it continues that theme. It is for me. You can look at me like that, but this is a really good Tumble. This is a really good Tumble. We'll talk later about the ones that you incorrectly have above this, but yeah, this is not on your playlist.
This one's not on my playlist.
Man, this is a good Tumble.
I mean, it's no peach Tumble. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
Tumble's been good this year. How about let's just go with that too? Like altogether, Tumbles. I'm counting here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 versions over 20 minutes, but they're not like stale 20 minutes for the most part.
There's a handful of them that get. It's the Legend Valley Creatures phenomenon, right? Where you just get a few good minutes in the midst of
The ending,
20 minutes
yeah.
of other stuff, right? This one's really good. I'm actually really surprised to hear you say that, Ryan,
fair.
because I think this Tumble is quite good. And yeah, I thought that now, yeah, you don't want to. Maybe you don't want to see the sandwiches all the time, but I like this Empress. Mist Empress, and also they're both saga songs, so I think that the sandwich makes sense too. Yeah, it's clearly part of the same story.
It's
yeah, I thought that was great. Loved seeing those put together like that. So yeah, I mean, Oh, this is another one of those shows from this tour. It's like, hey, there's a lot of good stuff here, and it's it's middle of the pack, and the middle of the pack is solid.
Yeah,
Solid
it's
pack.
not the stuff that like we get all crazy about when we talk about it on the podcast. That was kind of my point in the beginning of this. But one thing I wanted to point out before moving on from the set of the show is just again the segues. You're just seeing a lot more full arrows in these set lists, and this is an example of that, where there's a concerted effort to have these sandwiches. You know, for better or for worse, right? Ryan says, "Well, I'd rather have a longer Empress," and I don't necessarily disagree with that. But if you're going to slap a song in between, in the middle of Empress of Organos, let it be Into the Mist. Just saying, not a bad way to go. So that's good stuff, in my opinion. Kev,
Love Light. Anybody have any comments on Love Light? Encore.
First one in almost a year.
yeah,
Good stuff.
without a warning, you broke my heart.
Take
All right.
it on, baby.
Ryan's
Yeah,
the
that's
Donna
love
Jean
it
of the
apart.
podcast.
Baby, please. All right, next up, coming up from Virginia here, we have a stop in Chicago for 3 nights, starting with September 11th, 2024 at the Salt Shed Fairgrounds, the outdoor venue. We had an opening flowdown, aka the Flopener, as some like to say, followed by, maybe not me, but Butterflies. My mind has been consumed by media, California Magic, a hot butter rum, Please Forgive Me, and SOS. So opening it off here with the 3 nights, kind of felt like a settling in set, sort of like shifting away, right? We had SPAC maybe that was sort of opening it back up, and Charlottesville that sort of was a little bit more refined and felt like it was the transitional show. You get your 3-pack here, 4-pack actually, if you may, 5. Hey, all of these could open,
SOS.
right? I
Yep.
guess maybe
Yep.
aside
6
from
out of 7.
SOS, but
SOS can and has, I think.
yeah, yep,
That's an opener.
yep. So I mean, the star of the show here is the rum. It was great, saucy, deep, like actually took it spaces, and we always do like to occasionally poke fun here, but great jam. I was impressed. One of the highlights of the night for sure. So yeah, good set. Who else?
Yeah, it's a hot set when Rome is the anchor. I mean,
Woo!
It was an outdoor show. It's like 80 degrees. It's like you're on a beach, Why not?
Listen, perfect weather here in Chicago.
whole
That's not what
weekend.
we're talking about. Yeah, no, this is a good set. 20-minute rum. Lots of fun.
Chicago's a great city.
Well, I mean, it's been Boston and Chicago. You know what I mean? And Saratoga Springs isn't really a city.
Yeah. Great cities.
I missed the boat
Great cities.
down in Charlottesville.
No.
It's a vibe.
Great city. Great city.
Yes.
It's a great city. Yep.
Never been.
Me neither.
Been. All right, set 2.
Me neither. All right, set 2. Let's
Set
talk
2.
about the set 2. There's
All
some
right.
stuff.
Yep. So yeah, butter rum we had was the highlight, but followed up with Echo of a Rose, Wisteria Lane, and then we get the Jive Fecta in order: Jive 1, Jive 2, Jive Lee, and a proper show closing Madhavan this time around. So yeah, great stuff here. Think both the Echo and the Wisteria have some great highlights. You get Rick really highlighting this is where we saw that newer patch, right, Ryan? I think was it the Wisteria here? The rum might have, but I thought the Wisteria has kind of showcased some of the sauce, sort of like
Yeah.
filter a little bit like longer and the wider, if you may, on his attack. We talked to him, or tried to like hear a little bit about those. Can't wait to hear some of those thoughts on the effects. But the only thing for me, as I'll finish up before I leave it to the floor, is I feel like the Jive 1, Jive 2, Jive Lee, as they try to put this into a set, it just can feel a little bit unnatural and take away from the set as a whole. It's not that Echo or Wisteria didn't get proper time. It just sort of feels slightly forced. It's almost like a better first set chunk for me as well. But yeah, and then a really good Madhavan to close too. what was the song we felt it was a
Shama.
Shamamata,
Lama
Shamavan.
Madhavan.
Yeah, Shamalama Madhavan. Yeah.
Hey, dude.
That's right. So B, what do we got here?
Okay, so I totally agree on the jive triptych. I think it's a first set
Zip it.
kind of work. And I don't know, are they doing it too often? Is it too often now? How often should they do it? I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Maybe that's too much.
Yeah.
I think like with the Traveler's LMAG, you just don't want it to become a thing. Because now I feel Traveler's LMAG is this thing where I'm like, oh, they're doing that thing again. So I think you got to mix it up. I would actually like to see once in a while, just like a Jive 1, Jive 2. In the first set, you don't. Yes, you don't always have to Jive 2, Jive lead. You can mix. You
on its own.
yeah.
Open Jive 2 and Jive lead. Just like split it up again. Get a little creative.
Yeah. Yeah. You could try inverting. I know that works sometimes for some bands.
Jive 1 and Jive 2.
Throw in a Wiltonian jive. Just for different.
This Wisteria is what gets me the most excited about this show.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really good. It reminds me of another Wisteria, and I can't quite place the date, but where Rick, I like how this sounds when he does this, where he does a run and then does some chords that, I don't know if you know what I'm saying. When you listen back to this, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's like he's going back and forth between, playing a few chords or that, a particular progression, and then doing, a run of notes in between. And it kind of cycles it around. So this is kind of one of those Wisterias that does that whole thing, which I think sounds really cool. So yeah, big fan of the Wisteria. Okay, night 2 at the Salt Shed. Set 1, Mr. Action, Draconian Meter Maid, Indian River, A Western Sun Turned Clouds. And I was just about actually to say that the big...
Sit in.
I was just about to say the big highlight of this set is the pleasant. I was very pleasantly surprised when it was announced that Julian Lage was coming onto the stage. He is just a phenomenal jazz guitarist.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think the first thought is, what are they going to play with him? What are they going to do? This guy's amazing. And so they did a Western Sun, which kind of, and he introed it. So he kind of did his own unique intro. So you kind of didn't know what they were doing, even as Julian Lage was playing for a minute or two. So I was a little bit surprised at the Western Sun with that choice. But beautiful song. The jam coming out of it was really good. A lot of amazing playing by Julian, a lot of nice work between Julian and Rick. So yeah, that's for me the easy highlight of the set. But I do have to say that the Turn Clouds, though, that one I was just a little bit more perplexed about. I kind of felt like when you have a talent like Julian Lage on stage, I just Turn Clouds felt it. First of all, they did it fairly straight, and he didn't really take much of a solo. Even certainly didn't go into any open improv territory. So yeah, that one just left me a little bit like, what else? Maybe what about like a Thatcher or something with, something more wide open? I think would have been really cool to see him, explore.
We saw his influence. Why not have him play with it in kind of some of the stuff from the second set too, like some of those bigger jams, like you said.
So I would say echo a lot of the things that you said about Julian. Hearing that instantly turned me into a fan. Was able to see him close to home here at the Gothic Theater in Englewood, Colorado, a couple weeks later. After that happened, I was blown away by it. Great city, Englewood, Colorado. But also, I would not be Custy Kev if I also didn't pick up his new vinyl, Speak to Me. So if you have a chance, best way that you can support local music is to buy their music. So
yeah, man, I actually think the Western Sun hits, and for some reason or another, I think the Turn Clouds fits, and I don't exactly know why. And I wonder why they chose that song, because there's a whole breadth of things they could have done. They could have done a jazz standard, which probably was a little bit too on the nose, and Julian Lodge was probably like, "Yeah, fuck that, I don't want to do that." So it's funny that they arrived at these songs, but I don't know. I like the way it worked out. I think it sounded great. I think what's interesting about this is not the sit-in, but what comes after. In I think Rick is inspired by this, and a bunch of things change afterwards, including the next playing of A Western Sun. So uh, this sparks a different approach, I think, this sit-in. So I thought that was interesting. And I just want to say, like, this is the kind of sit-in that's exciting. Like, this is not like Mahali sitting in for a Doobie song. This is like a world-class musician, you know?
So you're less excited.
Yeah. Well, that Doobie with Mahali from the Chicago show. Oh,
yeah.
Fuck,
This isn't like the guitarist from Moonboot Lover sitting with Max Creek, you know.
Oh, Peter Prince is the shit. Like, don't even get me started. Hey, listen, Moonboot Lover on an entirely different level. Don't even get me fucking started. So yeah, no, I just thought this shit was cool. These
Why
are the
you
kind of
dogging
things I'm
Max
looking
Creek,
for.
man?
And like, also, like, how did they get him to sit in? Like, this is a well-respected guy. This is kind of a big deal for them.
What are you saying about Goose, Neal? But
what am I saying
what
about
I heard
Goose?
was,
I'm saying they're not world-renowned jazz musicians who are child prodigies like Julian Lodge. That's what I'm saying.
Sure. So what I heard was that, you know, obviously Peter mentioned they went to see him play at the Ridgefield Playhouse in Connecticut while they were rehearsing in the spring. And aside from that, their managements made some connections and were like, hey, Julian Lodge is going to be in Chicago the day before. Like, you guys should hang out. And, he should play with you guys because it's going to be awesome. And I mean, based on Julian Lodge's various social media posts about this and like Goose's social media posts about this and just their general like excitement, like watching them, I was lucky enough to be like third row in front of Trevor for this show. Shout out Dylan and Blair who held down the spot. But like watching mostly Rick, Peter, and Julian, how much fun the three of them were having. Like Rick and Julian especially were just vibing off each other. And as you say, Neal, like the Schofield button, that jazz button.
Oh yeah, Rick was doing full Schofield.
Yeah,
shit, like,
you know, he was like doing that, and it was like it's a completely different angle than Rick normally does when he's, you know, when he's not jazz inspired.
Which is
like
what I was
that.
just saying. He was inspired by this.
Yeah,
this
yeah. But I'm saying like the Schofield button especially. And then Peter just like is there playing keys. He's not really like as much of an active participant in this, but he just like has this shit-eating grin on his face the entire sit-in. Like he's just so excited about it.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Well, because like in their eyes, it's like fucking Hendrix, you know, like not the same, but close. But sorry, Jive, what do you?
Berkeley Hendrix. Anyway,
yeah,
and I don't know his history of sit-ins and things like this. I will tell you that he's more likely to be performing in front of a seated audience who are mesmerized by the talent on stage and, you know, the skills. So the reason I say that is I think for a guy like Julian Lodge, this is a really fun sit-in because even if not everybody in the mainstream knows who Goose is, there's a large crowd of people that are just incredibly stoked to be there and having a great time and giving tons of feedback, you know, to the stage. And so I think that's always a cool experience for people, you know, because like when if it's not if Trey and Rick, yeah, they both see all this, you know what I mean, on different levels, obviously, but it's same thing with like it makes me think of like with Fish. I remember when Jay-Z came out and played with Fish in Brooklyn, and you can hear it in the things that he's saying in his voice, how he's like, oh shit, like this is crazy, y'all got some stuff going on here and I didn't even know about it, you know, like so that with popular jam bands, if you just want to, like, I hate to say that and I'm not trying to distill it down any further than that, but the crowds are into it, you know what I mean, like we are incredibly energetic, you know, intelligent audiences, and we have a lot of respect for what the people on stage are doing. And undoubtedly, I think I would imagine a lot of people in that crowd knew who Julian Lage was. And, certainly by the time he started playing for 30 seconds, they wanted to know who he was if they didn't already know.
Yeah.
To wrap up the discourse with Julian, I think Jive, you're absolutely right. I think not only, obviously we love Goose, but we're also listening to Goose to listen where the influences of Goose are coming from. And so for them to be able to play with somebody like that, instantly for me, I'm curious about music, always curious about learning about new artists, and I had not heard about him or heard of him before. So for that exposure to me instantly converted me into a fan of his. So I appreciate, that sort of synchronicity as well.
Set 2, Yeti, Pumped Up Kicks,
B?
Yeti, Thatch, interesting timing on that. Redbird, Factory Fiction, Encore, Slow Ready. So, yeah, to be honest, I mean, look, aside from the Julian Lage sit-in, the first 2/3 or 3/4 of the show don't really jump out at me, either on paper or on re-listen. But everything changes with this Thatch, and in particular with the improv that comes out of this Thatch jam. This is this is such an amazing jam. I know it reminds me a little bit of a jam that I think that the pod as a whole are big fans of, which is the Thekla All I Need. And how it does a little bit of the,
I was thinking more Legend Valley Madhavan, but
yeah, this is a big jam. I love this jam. This is definitely in my top 5. It might even be like my number 3 jam of the fall. I mean, I think it's that good. It could be 4 or 5. I don't know, but I love it. It's so different and so good. And I know at one point I heard from somebody that their kind of devil's advocate view was, well, there's not enough of it or whatever. And so I think that's what inspired my comments earlier, which is about like, I mean, yeah, it's not always a negative for me when I'm left longing for more. So this jam is that. To be fair, this jam may leave you wanting more.
Yeah.
But if it does, then listen to it again, or listen to more amazing jams from this band. But this is an incredible jam. Redbird, I feel like this is another Redbird that gets cut a little bit short. Factory Fiction, nice, yeah, nice Factory to close the set, and then Slow Ready Encore. So yeah, I mean, for this, for me, this is just all about the Thatch. It's an amazing jam, and I love it.
Yeah, I really liked the Yeti Pumped Up Kicks. Yeti, I thought was great. Got a little bust out there with that. I think the song pairs well with, we saw it used with Mist in the past, and would come to see it again this tour with Yeti. But just sort of, as Neal spoke about earlier, just kind of highlights the shift of Yeti and kind of finding different spaces with it. And it kind of gets into this 4 on the floor space really, really quickly as they're transitioning into the pumped up kicks. But I had a blast with it. I think it's been cool to see Yeti like transform a bit more live as well. Much more enjoyable song now too. There's more to it, but yeah, like you said, the Thatch just had a lot of those jazzy influences and kind of the notes that Rick was playing, and it was sort of like he was trading off with Julian like in his mind, but sort of doing it on his own, which sort of sounds a little weird, but was very much like him just kind of taking odd, very, very unusual solos for the spaces that we've come to know. Yeah, Redbird, I loved it. Wish there was more of it, but really good use of the digital sauce pedal and effect there. And then the unexpected Factory, as we've come to find at times, it sort of will pop up, and it was welcomed. Very, very good reaction from the crowd, and yeah, it's a fun show. Slow Ready Encore, can't go wrong. And Peter now with this is he's got, right, he can loop it his arpeggiator, so it allows more synth textures and building other types of can play the vibe, can play sort of other keys along with it.
Thank you for bringing that up, D. Because that's the only thing I want to add to this is Peter on the Moog Muse has the slow ready arpeggiator fully looped in the synth now, so he doesn't have to play the different chords that the arpeggiator does. It's just on its own, which means he's able to jam along on phaser piano, which has been his go-to so far. But I'm looking forward to hopefully this opening up into bigger things later this fall. Neal, September 13th, Salt Shed, Night 3.
Salt Shed.
Sun Cruiser.
Zoltan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I do. When it's time to party, you cruise with the sun.
Is that like a surf side?
Yeah, let's do the Sun Cruiser.
Is that the sun?
How
it all started at
we have
hashtag sponsored
here in the Midwest.
Shout out to Andy Frasco. Let's talk about the show.
My guy Andy Frasco. All right, so we get set one opener, Hot Love and the Lazy Poet, One In, One Out, again, killer song. Then Born, Silver Rising, Atlas Dogs, Big Modern, and the
dog.
And then so Big Modern continuing on this arc of like every time they play it, it gets like a little bit better. And this one is pretty hot. And then in like the set
substrate.
Yeah, set 2 closer spot, absolutely killer. But a couple things about the set. You get, I think, a smattering of songs that I think they really wanted to play in front of people. Like, Hot Love just gets played every third show, so get ready for that. One In, One Out, like new song, absolutely crushes, great in this spot. Born in the first set, really loved this in the spot, and then like weirdly placed Silver Rising, then weirdly placed Atlas Dogs right after. A bunch of us were like, oh, so we're getting the suite now, right? So how it ends is coming. Nope, didn't happen. Then you get the Big Modern. All in all, I love the way this set flows. This is another example of just like a whole smattering of first set openers just kind of thrown together. But
I thought there's more substance to these than some other ones too. Like this is all like
agreed. Yeah.
This set like each song was right. The One In, One Out still getting there, but Born, Atlas Dogs had a little bit extra. Big Modern was great. Silver Rising had. I mean, Rick was dealing with the what was it? The
click track
in the Born. He had looped in some crazy sort of. Oh, this is the last 2 minutes of the Born. Is like we talk about, right? Like this is some of the stuff that we would see later on in the tour, the drip later. But these little like 90-second to 2-minute long areas where the band is now kind of tapped in, and they can Rick using his effects and Peter just washing, I mean, synths all over, and the band just like dropping in and going kind of really deep. Hopefully see more of that just explored in the future.
Yeah, the end of this Born, I forgot about that. The end of this Born is remarkable. So if you want to take a 30-second snippet of a Goose jam, any jam, and match it up against this 30-second snippet of Born, you might have a hard time saying any 30-second snippet you pick is better. That's how cool this section is.
This is where we start seeing, I think this is the jam that kind of got Rick hooked back on that like Eugene Bourne cloud of reverse delay echo.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just the coolest.
Yep.
Yeah, no, but and it's really cool.
It showed throughout the rest of the tour a little bit. Areas,
correct.
Yeah.
So that's what I meant. So up until this point, he's like using it as just he's like looping it and like fucking with the knobs on it's the Ditto looper, I believe, and it's just like a loop. But later in the tour, we hear him use it as like an echo. Actually, sorry, later in this show, we hear him use it as like an echo effect. And it's so cool because it kind of comes in reverse. And it's like, think Eugene Bourne as that like very hypnotic groove is developing. You hear that like, but imagine that, but in a jam. And we're going to hear that in the second set. And I love that it feels like this Bourne is the thing that inspired Rick to start tapping into the capabilities of that pedal in that way. So I love that a lot. Don't have a ton to add to this set, except Adventure loves a roof rack.
Yeah. Ponderosa Pines.
Adventure still loves a roof rack, guys. Can you believe it? We're almost 2 weeks into this tour, and Adventure still loves a roof rack. Neal, take us into set 2.
Okay, set 2. Occasionally, Goose doesn't do the on the nose thing, and occasionally they do. So you get the Zalt opener, SLT, Salt, whatever you want to call it. That is what it is. So then you get State of the Art, which incredible
Best cover.
One of my favorites, if not my favorite. Then you get a drip field that is just so astonishingly beautiful. This isn't the kind of song that doesn't jam necessarily when they play it. So when they play it and you get a jam, you're stoked. And then when they play it and you get a jam like this, you're beside yourself excited, because I think this is a culmination of just a lot of just this band learning how to play together. I mean, they got a new drummer. The guy's not been around for that long. And I think the way this jam unfolds, just the kind of the vibe, again, it's like the same kind of swells that you get from the drive at SPAC, where like they're coming together in phrases of music, and it's not just, a standard like 4/4 time kind of thing. Like they're all kind of working together to make a sound, with this new drummer. So like I love this jam so much, and it's one of my favorites of the whole entire tour. I think this might even have been like my favorite jam they've ever done if we got a couple more minutes to flesh out the themes that they find in this, but we didn't get it.
Wow.
And we get the back half of So Ready right after that, which I think is amazing.
What's that called?
It's called Satellite.
They call it Satellite, but like not the Dave Matthews song. I find this to be a better fit in the moment than the Dave Matthews song. Dave Matthews' Satellite is best left for like college dudes on the front porch with their acoustic guitars.
30-year anniversary of that album, by the way. So go.
Oh, Dave. Is it?
And then the 20-year anniversary of the incident, right? Or something?
The poop?
Yeah.
In Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought they're closely related, actually.
No kidding.
The river incident.
I didn't know that.
There. Yeah.
And then you get his all-time favorite, Hollywood Nights, which, of course,
their best cover.
A big venue, big kind of show. And then you get leading into or Give It Time, agree. In this moment, the best possible cover they could have played. It's no War Pigs, but still. And then you get Give It Time going into the encore, and then Arcadia, and then
Zaltcadia.
Zaltcadia. Holy shit, man! Just the flow of all of this is incredible. Everything from the beginning, Zalt, all the way to the end. This is a highly curated set list, and they fucking nailed it. Sometimes they try way too hard. They get overly ambitious. They got to cut songs. They got to rethink how they do it. Everything about this is great. And in the middle, you get an absolutely spectacular jam.
This is a phenomenal set. And in fact, this is a really, really good show. This show is going to be one of the shows that you're going to have to think about, if you're ranking shows, or, if you're looking for, complete shows to give to a new listener, or, whatever. When you're thinking about best shows and most complete shows and ideal set list construction and good jams, I mean, this is really it. Now, I think I think you'd argue that there's some moments in some other jams, but there's really only one truly great jam here, which, like you said, Neal, this drip field. I'm right there with you. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And it just has some really gorgeous spaces, and it's very unique. There's not another drip field like this, which is always refreshing. And I think sometimes might even earn some extra points when it's this refreshingly good. It certainly does. But yeah, it's just a well-constructed set and show all together. And is it Zalt reprise? Is it?
So it would technically be a reprise, but saying reprise is kind of ridiculous. Like,
he doesn't want to notate it as that.
No, but so I would just like to say, Neal agrees with me here. Neal, please back me up on this.
Satellite is a song.
God. So this drip field is incredible.
This feels like being rocked in a cradle.
I'm pretty sure this drip field was the first time that Neal or all of us use the word mature to describe their jamming. I think this was it. This is Rick utilizing that echo, that reverse delay, kind of cloud of noise going towards you. This is it. And I mean, this was the thing. It was when they went into the mid-set drip field, we were like, yes, like this is what we've been waiting for, because we know drip field has that improvisational potential. But for the last number of versions, for most of this year outside of indie, it's been, okay, we've got a little bit of time. We're going to close the second set, or we're going to encore with drip field. It doesn't have the breathing room to improvise, but that's fine because it crushes, which is fine. But the first version of this year to really get out there, this one just, yeah, truly, truly breathtaking, incredible. I will say it drops down my list a little bit because of just how long the segue into Satellite is. I think without the pressure of that, if they had kept going, one of those things, obviously, like, it's still over 20 minutes. It's still an incredible jam. What they do in here is breathtaking, but I don't think they were done. And that's my thing with this, with Satellite. I love that they're doing that, but I think this many shows after SPAC Night 2, I think at this point you just play So Ready again. At this point, I don't think it's like it still feels like a hanging Satellite. But that's my.
But it was just the energy was flying. I felt that was
sure. I mean,
and I think
it was great. It was great.
Well, this show. So I bring it up still. I brought it up recently at another. I mean, I think I brought it up about this pod, but it reminds me of that 10/19/2020 Frederick, Maryland show. It's just like well curated. You get, songs broken apart. You get the Satellite, kind of like they did with the Drive or the Flea, I think it was during that show. They split those two up, or like we got some Flea. That was when they were breaking Flea apart like into 3 that one time, in fall of 2020. And yeah, I think you said it too. It's a very good show that represents top to bottom where the band is. It was like all 5 of their new songs, right? Or new at this time, I mean, or the first time they did 5 like new songs debuted in the year. We didn't have Media, of course, or Draconian, but they were highlighting a lot of some of these newer tracks, a lot of drip field songs, and then you get Arcadia, right? And you get, a jam of the portion of So Ready and Satellite that is an older track as well. But aside from that, all of these are, and Hot Love being an older Visuto song, of course, but all of these are, I mean, newer songs. So it sort of felt very intentional, but like Neal said, didn't miss, which was good. The first set all had good flow. Like the second was awesome. Like state of the art, just captivated everybody. I think that was like live in the moment. I remember every time that song does it, but like Chicago's a city, I think that, Jim James, that's something more that sort of people are more aware of, the indie crowd. We've had some people on the pod too. And so this was, you give it time to close. It's like, it's perfect. I think this is one of the shows and sets that is just going to kind of continue on. It's something I'll listen to often, just flows really well.
100%. Without further ado, let's head to Minneapolis, Minnesota at the Armory. First set, Dr. Darkness, The Whales, Killing Moon, Rockdale, Feel It Now, Seekers, and Animal. Really, to me, this set is about the Rockdale. Little Dragonfly vibes, just like drenched in this Rockdale. Love when they hit the space. Would love if they wanted to actually play Dragonfly, but otherwise, it's a really solid first set. Love to see Killing Moon continue to be in regular rotation. Otherwise, we're having a good time. This Whales is good. Banger. B?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about the flow of some of the sets, but we probably won't talk about that in this one. I'm making my own jokes. But this one's choppy. This one to me is just a little bit choppy. Darkness, Whales, Killing Moon, Rockdale. I mean, Rockdale, Feel It Now. Okay, that's good. Nothing wrong with that. Then Seekers, then Anno. This one just feels a little bit kind of all over the place to me. Is it just me, or is Like, does this one feel choppy all over the place, like not very flowy to you?
So you had 3, 6 full, very intentional sets, and then you have this on the other side of it. And this is what you get. You get a whole bunch of songs that like they need to play because they're in their regular rotation. I mean, Seekers is on like a solid every 5 to 6 shows. That's it. They are super strict about it. So they're going to play it. Rockdale is even more strict. It's like every 3rd or 4th show. So you're getting it no matter what. So that had to come in this show. Killing Moon, that's a nice little treat. That's kind of out of nowhere. And this is like the first one since when?
Well, we had that whole string of them. We had
Fox
that
in
whole
June.
string of them before
And the Fox.
at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the second one that they played with Cotter.
Yeah, and like, anytime you get a chance to hear an Echo and the Bunnymen song in a Goose
Fuck
show,
yeah.
like, that's pretty fucking cool.
Fuck yeah.
So I like that in there in this set, but otherwise this is like Jive said, it's awkward and it's missing the jams. I do think there's like a pretty sweet jam in this Rockdale, and it sets itself apart from other Rockdales. So that is actually a nice little gem you get in this set as well. But other than that, not much to write home about.
Second set had a little
Yeah.
flavor.
Oh yeah,
for the-
second
well,
set's got. Oh man, don't even
For the
start it.
non-jammer
Yeah.
Rockdales, this is a pretty good non-jammer. I totally agree.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. Well, speaking of jammers, let's talk about the second set. Creatures,
Oh.
In Your Eyes, Drive, Hunger Sight, Everything Must Go, Hot Tea, Encore. I'd like to point out that Neal told me before this encore that Everything Must Go was not going to be played and my Fantasy Goose would not be saved. Luckily for him, I would shit the bed on Fantasy Goose later in the tour. But right at this point, when this show was played, I was doing really well. So fuck you.
I just want to point out, like, before we move on, because you've now said something about what I've said, so like I need an opportunity to respond here. Goose has never played Everything Must Go in the encore slot.
I actually have at this show.
Ever until this moment. And Ryan, as Ryan does with his abundance of hubris, says they're absolutely playing this in the encore slot. It's like, no fucking way.
I had it for like 7 points or whatever.
And then once again, Ryan's hubris is rewarded. They play it in the encore slot. Ryan gets Fantasy Goose victory out of this or something. I don't even remember what happened.
I just beat you.
It is remarkable. It bears saying on this podcast, again, because I've said it before, that Ryan's hubris is always rewarded. Yet,
not always.
I don't
got an egg
understand
tonight.
how the world works this way, but it's remarkable. But yeah, no, killer set. So continue. Sorry,
Anyway, this set, solid creatures, nice Mad World and Killing Moon teases. In Your Eyes didn't stretch as long as I was hoping. Really amazing Peter DeLay piano work at the end, kind of a mellow section. And Drive, man, like every version of Drive outside of the couple that have not had a jam this year. I mean, it's just the year of Drive. And it's amazing to hear what they're doing with this song. Another amazing jam that just kind of unfolds in such an amazing way.
Little Traverse,
really good. And then Hunger Sight, beginning its trend as a set closer. I mean, I love it in this slot. We talked on our June episodes about Hunger Sights being kind of predictable. They're going to open the second set. They're going to play for 23 minutes. There's going to be 18 minutes of Type 1 Hunger Sight and then 5 minutes of really cool jamming. And here you get it in a more condensed form. They're not just going right for the standard Hunger Sight peak, and they're doing a little more in it. So I'm hoping that Hunger Sight's time as a set closer, which we will see in the second half as well, brings it back on the next leg of tour with renewed inspiration and ready to, get into more uncharted territory. Who wants to go next on this set?
The one thing I want to talk about in this set is this drive, because holy shit, man. This is one of my favorite drives ever. But it's a niche drive. It's not like the greatest jam of all time, but it is one of those jams that makes you want to run headfirst into a brick wall and turn it into fucking dust. So when it was on, I was like, this is going right on my running playlist. This one is spectacular. I mean, that's the only thing I can say about this. It just has so much energy to it. It's incredible. So that is my favorite part of this set. Otherwise, I mean, you just get a lot of heat in this set, right? So the Hunger Sight, it kind of has a similar vibe to it. Creatures in Your Eyes to start it off. I mean, like, this is all good stuff. This is all really, really good stuff. So great set all around. Carries that first set big time. This second set actually makes this whole show feel really good. We were talking about that earlier, whereas it's like this second set is, you can match it against any other second set on this tour is like pretty hot. But the first set kind of drags it down on like the all-timer show on the tour kind of thing. Jive.
Yeah, I just real quick on the drive. I love this drive as well, and I agree with everything you said there, Neal. Now, neither one of us, I don't think, have it as high as the SPAC drive. I think that's just the better jam in general. But this one, I was just gonna say this one, it reminds me just a little bit of Cap Pancakes. Just there's something about it that is reminiscent of which is a jam that I love and still have really, really high. So yeah, I just and yeah, I mean, you said it, but yeah, these drives, the thatch, the drip field. I mean, this is some of the best jamming of the fall coming in those jams.
There we go.
Should we keep traveling?
Our final show of the tour here.
Not to be confused with Milwaukee.
Not
Mr.
Milwaukee.
Kev. Mr. Kev.
Yeah, we're on the September 15, 2024 here, middle September. Vibrant music hall in Waukee, not Milwaukee, Waukee, Iowa. And we're gonna open this show. I love, like, in these like third tier towns how they open shows with me and my uncle. They did that. They did that. Well, yeah, man, they did that for us at the Aggie beat.
Colorado, yeah.
Followed up with again the Billy Joel cover, "Turbulence in the Night Rays," bringing it back. Oh man, so many people excited about this.
I'm not,
including I was.
I still am.
And I still am, and I know Neal will talk about this as well. But bringing back Lily's Tiger, so I'm going to eat my own words right now about calling One In, One Out like the second best, because I'm reevaluating all sorts of things right now.
Peter songs.
Yeah, Peter songs. Followed up with All I Need by a very, very, very lengthy Earthling and Alien. A song that some people are calling one of Goose's best songs, Lead Up. Closing the set out with White Lights.
So listen, Lily's Tiger, I think I might believe truly that Lily's Tiger is Goose's best instrumental.
Like composition song?
Yeah, instrumental. Yeah.
Like composed
songs, lyrics.
Because I know there's a handful of people on this pod that don't like some of Goose's composed songs. So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think you'd have to. Engborg, I think, would be the one that a lot of people, would have up there. Jively is obviously a great, piece for improvisation.
Jam, but different. Yeah.
Lily's Tiger just has an energy and a feeling for me that's, yeah. I love it. Why don't they play it? I guess that's the question, right? And hearing it this night, I was super psyched hearing the intro. I got really excited, and it's a really good version. I mean, it's not something that they decided to play on a whim and hadn't dusted it off. I mean, it sounds practiced, and that immediately, after they played it so well, that immediately made me think, why aren't they playing this more? This is so good. It's so good.
And there's going to be some background here from the folks that were in attendance, because there was somebody that had requested the song.
In Chicago too, though, they had been like, right, Ryan, they had been like changing the sign.
I think it was in Minneapolis.
Gotcha.
Sign, who had the
play Lily's Tiger.
A kid that had the sign that said "Play Lily's Tiger," and then apparently
in Minneapolis,
the band or something. Peter like pointed at the kid in Iowa, like, yes, it was amazing.
Oh, so this was like, I didn't know this story. This is actually really interesting. So wait, hold on, flesh this out for us, Ryan. So kid was there in Minneapolis
with a cardboard sign,
with the sign that said "Play Lily's Tiger." And then they show up in Iowa and they fucking crush it, like,
and they rip
every
off.
Yeah, Well,
ripped
that's
off
why I've
a
been saying
portion at
since
the
then.
bottom, and it says Iowa on the other side. So he like ripped off Minneapolis and then put Iowa in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's why
dope.
I've been saying since then we need to hire a little kid to get on the rail with a sign that says "Play Thunder."
Whoa.
Play Thunder. I think it's pronounced 700, but
Thank you, Neal.
yeah, I'm down with this. I'm 100%.
I mean, yeah, this but yeah, the Lily's Tiger, this was another sort of a wake up of a set. And when you think about the first set from the night before, that felt a little bit just sort of like a going through the motions in the transitional period of this tour after Chicago. And yeah, came out fired up. All I Need was good, had a great little piece in there and section. And yeah, I thought the Earthling was great. Just Peter and Rick trading things off. And I mean, sat behind you in Spanish to close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Do you ever
think
think about how?
I don't think there's ever been a set that contains Earthling or Alien and White Lights that I've liked as much as this set.
Yeah,
yeah, fair.
Because this is an amazing set. I maybe I don't want to say amazing, but this.
but for
Yeah,
a first set especially, I feel like it's actually it's a
Yeah.
good first set. Like in terms of it has a lot more substance to it, but it's also got good songs and good covers too.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's
and
nice.
and again, it's like you get the Lily's Tiger, the Earthling, and the White Lights, and I don't always love the latter two, but this is one of my favorite Earthling or Alien jams. I mean, it's
Peter heavy
it
set,
doesn't
huh?
quite go to the ambient or dark places that some others have gone. So just to be clear, it's certainly not the goat or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting, I think I would say a unique version, and it's just a jammer. I mean, it's just a full on jammer, and it's got a lot of energy, and it's really good. Yeah. So all in all, yeah, this is a really solid set for sure.
Yeah, a few
Neal?
things to say about the set. Lily's Tiger, obviously fucking incredible. I was sad because I was in the 100% club for Lily's Tiger, so that gave me power. I used to hold that over Ryan's head, which felt really good. I can still do that, but in any case, that part is really cool. The All I Need in this set is spectacular but short. So yet another spectacular but short All I Need. Recommend going back and listening to that. And then the Earthling or Alien, the one thing I do want to point out, and what I really love about this song is it has kind of like a drop into the jam where like the song section kind of ends and then you just like kind of fall into the jam, kind of like, how Tweezer does with Fish, where it's just like there is a very clear delineation between where the song ends and the jam begins, at least in like, older versions that I'm more used to. Ryan might have differing opinions about what's happened in the last.
So you'd say Tweezer is
15 years.
Fish's Earthling or Alien?
Nope, not saying that at all. Not even trying to say that. But what I am saying is that it has a very clear delineation between the song and the jam. And then this one has this really incredibly crisp synth thing that happens in between the song and the jam that acts as like a bridge between the two. And it's fucking great. This is one of the coolest things I've heard Peter do on the synth like ever. And it's got like a little bit of that like whoa, 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 like auditory nitrous quality to it. It's I mean, this is like, it's the good shit, dude. It's so great. And I love the way it transitions. So good stuff. And it's good jam too. The jam that comes after is awesome.
Second setting leads off with our queen, the Empress of Organos, into Chugalhor Green River, finishing up with Empress of Organos. Bob Don.
Chugalhor?
Chugalhor. Our band loves Chugaling. Into Arrow, and then we get Don't Do It.
Okay, so now I get why somebody earlier was like, stop putting stuff in Empress. Now I get it. Now I feel that. I was not strapped in.
Yeah, and Empress.
Wait, this actually fucking works. The back half of this Empress is fucking incredible. But like, yeah,
but you can't give Green River the credit for that,
It's a non-consensual.
It's a
greeting.
Chugel
That's all I wanted
Yeah.
to say.
So if I could real quick, because there's a lull here and that never happens on this podcast, I would like to propose, because of Bob Don, I would like to propose a happy ending set where we get a mist that ends up getting finished, where we get an All I Need with the second jam, and we finish that with a Bob Don with.
Ooh, happy?
That sounds incredible.
Happy ending set.
What else? What? There's got to be something else.
Three
I
for
support
three.
I support Kev's dreams. I support Kev's dreams. But I'd like to talk about this Empress. We get almost 5 minutes of intro here, which is crazy because you get some extended intro is fun.
Waukee.
This one felt like by minute 3 or 4, it was like, all right, it's a bit much. Can we start the song, please? But this was another thing where it was like, yeah, as you said, B, as I said before, stop putting the songs in the middle of Empress. Because this Green River came they just started to jam out. We were 20 minutes into Empress, and it was like, now we're going somewhere. But then they went into Green River. But coming out on the other side of Green River, this was an amazing jam. You get the sauce all over this. Yeah, this was amazing. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, it is the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to open up the mail sack, and we're going to dive right in. We've got something from frequent contributor Peter Heller, Pistol 495. From day one, PNC show there has been a full band jamming, and it continued throughout the tour. How do we feel about this versus previous tours / years? Personally, love it. May take away from Jam of the Year candidates, but the sound is full and the energy is high. Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with you there, Pete. My main takeaway is that there's just listening to each other. There's more listening. Rick especially has learned how to hang back in a jam and still be an active participant without taking over and just driving them to a shreddy peak. So really appreciative of all these motifs from this tour. And I think that what we've learned throughout September, and by we, I mean collectively Goose, the band, and the fans on the journey together, as you guys give me shit for when I say we. I have a feeling that when we come back in a few weeks in Nashville, there's going to be this plus one. I think the band is not content to sit where they are right now, and they're going to keep building on these jamming styles, and we're going to keep seeing more maturity and more improvement. So this full band jamming is only going to get better. That's what I think. Anyone else have anything to add on this?
Just getting more comfortable.
Who wants to go next?
All right. I can give this a shot here. Big Roland says there's a general consensus that set listing has been excellent this tour. What contributes to that, both nightly and in a 3-night stint? We've touched on this topic a bunch. I don't think universally set listing has been excellent. I think there are situations where set listing hasn't been excellent because of the fact that they've been really intentional about the set list that they were putting out there in their 3-night runs. I think you get on the other side of that, maybe some not so good shows. So I think there are instances of incredible set listing, incredible flow, and then there are instances of not that. So, this is what you get when you're being very, very intentional about these 3-night runs, which again, I said this when we started this, Ryan, when you asked me what was different about this tour, what was your impression of this tour, was that there were multiple 3-night runs, and that was going to change something about this. My prediction was when I saw that there was going to be more comfort, more of them feeling rested, and bigger jams. That's not what happened. But I think what did happen is very intentional set listing. Jive, thoughts?
Well, I have my own question. I was going to speak to. I didn't. But what was that? Remind me of that question that you were just answering. Was it about set listing?
Well, the question I was
answering set listing
was the general consensus that set listing has been really good this tour. Which my answer was maybe
I agree.
So, maybe not.
That would have been my answer to that one as well. It would have been it's probably more of a mixed bag than maybe the caller insinuated there.
fair point.
I do.
What's your
I
question?
do.
You got a sec.
My mail sack question is from Adam. Thank you again for your setlist duties this evening. So Adam says, so Drive is the MVP this year with some gorgeous extended versions, yet there's also a handful of very abbreviated ones. What's the Big Pod usage style guide for short Drive? The main thing I want to comment on is, I guess, the more of a claim than a question that, Drive is the MVP, which I agree. I say true. I do think Drive has. There's a jam quotient that I calculate, and I think I think Drive has that highest number. And I would say right behind it is probably like Pancakes and Arrow this year. I feel like both have really strong versions. There's not a lot of this isn't the year with the big Wisteria jams. There's obviously the really big Madavon, but then there's kind of a gap to the next one. There's a lot of middle of the road tumbles. So I think it's kind of open after the Drive, and I think I'd have Pancakes and Arrow sneaking up there with some really solid versions this year.
Yep.
As far as the abbreviated Drive, I don't know. I'd have to go look at all the stats. I know they've done one, maybe two completely non-jam drives, which you those are outliers, and I think you kind of just chalk those off. But I think Drive has actually delivered on a lot of those. If we're just talking about the more abbreviated jams, like the 15 or 17-minute versions versus the 20, 30 plus, I think it is some of those 17 to 20-minute versions of Drive that have contained some really, really excellent jamming. So all in all, yeah, I definitely agree that Drive is the jam of the year. So I'd be curious as to what you guys think about that. What's your top 1, 2, or 3? D?
Well, yeah, I think Drive and Pancakes are two that are right up there as well. I think Mist had a good start. Maybe a little bit. Everything Must Go had some good versions. But yeah, I think Drive and Pancakes and Arrow. And it actually ties in well to a great question. Another friend of the pod, Matt for Math, for his sack. He asks, I have Arrow, Big Modern, and Born as the biggest jammers of September.
Well,
with
he does have Arrow.
3 strong versions each. Am I any songs I'm missing that hit the mark every time out? And I would say Drive and Pancakes have been pretty solid throughout any version that they show up. I mean, we see a big Pancakes, obviously the next leg that we'll talk about, but I think Drive as well showed up and showed out, as some would say. Showed up, it's. I think those. The Born for me maybe not as much, but Arrow, yeah, Arrow, Drive, Pancakes probably the 3 biggest this year. Who knows? Hopefully these last couple months we see a couple versions of one of those few songs that take it, the next tier, or the Madhuvan kind of comes back. So who knows?
Sounds right. I mean, Drive is the king right now, right? I think we can all agree on that.
100%.
And then Madhuvan, I think, is up there. After that, I think it's pretty steep drop
versions of Madhuvan this year, man.
Where's the big All I Need?
We take
that's my question.
That's true. Yeah.
That's a sack question.
It's been like 800 days since All I Need. Jeff would tell us probably.
Let's get the happy ending set going. All right.
Kev's got it written out.
Let's get the happy ending.
Kev, you want to read it out again?
Yeah.
Kev, you want to read it out again for your mail set?
I will.
Just finish it.
Oh, wait.
And
what does Kev need?
This should definitely be a second set, like just a whole second set. And it opens with a Mist that ends up finished into an AIN. All I Need, Smoking, that ends up with the second jam. And we get Bob Don to cool down. And I'll leave this open to you guys. Like, what water song would you put at the end of the Bob Don with? Would you put Your Ocean, This Old Sea? Like, what would you all go with?
I think you'd have to go with the This Old Sea with the vocals now in that to make it a full set. Instead
I'd go
of
with
Your
Ocean there.
Well, yeah, but you'd go Don, Your Ocean?
Yeah.
I guess if
Personally,
Don was
yeah.
ripping so hard and then whiffed it out, and then your ocean just floats out of it.
Can we get a
Yeah.
happy
I
ending?
think
Set of
I think
Goose?
I think the width is the cool down after Bob Don. You know what I mean? It's like a built-in cool down.
That's how I feel. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
need the Erosion.
Can we get a happy ending set at Goose?
It's got to be Hollywood Nights. I think.
I don't know. Oh my goodness!
I mean,
Oh
obviously.
my goodness!
Woo! Just teed it up. That was fucking
leave
incredible.
everybody sweating at the end of it.
I would just be yelling.
All right, are we waiting? Is anyone not sacked yet?
I think we're done. I just
Kev might-
before we end the podcast, I just want to say, like, Kev, we said this, but when you were like kind of off mic, and like the Weezer Kev look is just fucking incredible. You can't see it because you're listening to this podcast.
Almost
Kev
kind
is
of
just
a
fucking killing it.
kind of a
With the
young
haircut,
Alec
too.
Baldwin.
Handsome as
I
fuck.
was thinking,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
or one of the Baldwin brothers. I
Looks
don't
really
know.
good.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you guys can't.
Jesus Christ!
He might
Well,
even
I
be a
mean,
Baldwin
Kev's brother would
like,
be
they're
another
all
Baldwin
kind of
brother.
somewhat forgotten.
Yeah, Art looks
Yeah,
like him
exactly.
too.
Well, we'd like to extend our most heartfelt thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of the podcast. Well, apologies as well, but honestly, I think if you're still listening at this point in the podcast, you don't need an apology
love
because
you.
you're here and you're in with us. And so I would like to say thank you
Yeah,
for
we love
sticking
you.
with us through all this nonsense, listening through all this nonsense. But thank you.
We love talking.
We
about
will be
these
back
shows.
soon before the next leg of tour. We can tell you that. We don't know when, but we will be back soon with our part 2 covering the Zoltaire through Memphofest.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
Happy
fun
ending.
episode.
Happy
Yep.
ending. Set.
You know, and
Well,
as Ryan
listen,
likes to
happy
say,
endings
you
for
know, I mean,
everybody.
if you see him at a show, you know, come up and introduce yourself and ask him to apologize to you in person.
True. No. If you feel that Always Almost
Has
There
wronged you.
owes you an apology, yeah,
We'll give you one.
please.
Do you wish you
If
could
you
have
see
this
me at a
time
course
show
we
back?
have.
and you feel
Yeah.
that I owe you an apology for wasting your time,
You may be entitled to compensation.
yeah, please.
Have you ever
please.
spelled Eugene with 2 U's?
Yeah, all right, there we
I was
go.
wondering.
Have you ever eaten paint chips? All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Always Almost There. Sincerely, this has been a lot of fun. And we will see you guys very soon for our part 2 of September tour. I'm going to say it again. Our sincerest thank yous. We'll see you out there. We'll see you for the day after shows. We'll see you for the recaps. We're here. We're talking about Goose.
Part
'cause
two
we're
of
excited about what
part
they're doing right
1
now.
of the tour, right? Okay.
Yes.
And
Yep.
listen to it in however many parts that you need.
Yeah, you can
Exactly.
split it up. So this might be.
Thank
part
you,
7.
everybody. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day,
you're
your week, your weekend, whatever you may be doing. And we will see you on the next episode of Always Almost There. Thank you so much.